first spoke about this magical road which goes out to an island in the year 857. Yes, the first century, but we didn't call it the Passage du Gois until about the 16th century. But today it marks the start of the Tour de France, and we are in the most beautiful region of the Vendée, which has 90 miles of beach and 140 miles of water down the Atlantic seaboard. This is the place to be today on the 2nd of July. Hi, everybody. Welcome now to the commentary box. I'm Phil Liggett. This is Paul Sherring. I don't know about you, Paul, but I'm ready this year.
I'm absolutely ready because I think we're going to set up for a fantastic first day of racing. After all, it's a road stage. It's not a prologue. The first man to cross the line is going to be the yellow jersey.
That's absolutely right. There's no bonuses, and there are two teams up for the fight today. HTC Columbia, they've got two riders. We always talk of Mark Cavendish, the sprinter, but Paul, what about Matty Goss in his first tour?
Well, this is an amazing thing to have a team like that that's got a replacement sprinter. They're two different kinds of sprinters. Mark Cavendish, very flat, very fast on the flat finishes, but Matty Goss is able to get over the hills, and that's why in my book today I have a funny feeling that HTC High Road may turn it around for their man Matty Goss. But watch out, because, you know, on Garmin-Cervelo, they're also very fortunate, Phil, because they've got two different kinds of sprinters. Tyler Farrar, the American rider, looking for his first Tour de France stage victory. If he can't get himself over the hill, then watch out for the man that we always call the big god of thunder, Thor Hushovd.
Now, we've always alluded in the show so far about the change in the point score now for the green jersey, which is basically introduced in 1953 for the sprinter. Well, now they've made it, I think, much more exciting. The halfway point of every stage, Paul, they're going to race like it's the end of the day for the points for the green jersey. I
think it's going to be very important. I think it's actually a very good change for the sprinters. Now, let's have a look at how it's going to work out on the course. On the flat stages, you get yourself 45 points if you're the first rider to cross the line. 30 points for a medium mountain stage, 20 points for the high mountain stages, and the same for the time trial. But out on the course, there's only one intermediate sprint point instead of 3 last year, and the first man across the line there, Phil, will get himself 20 points.
So that's how it all works. Let's have a look how it started earlier today, because the race has been on the road now for approximately 2 hours. This was the neutralised rollout from Fromentine, which was the start town here in the Vendée. And all of the riders in their brand new strips, many of the teams changing their colours, especially for the Tour de France, including Garmin-Cervelo, Team Sky. There's Cadel Evans, the pressure of Australia. There's only 6 Australians in the race, but Cadel Evans is one man hoping to finally win it for Australia. And Mark Cavendish, who is all smiles. He thinks there might be 4 or 5 stages he could win.
Well, he certainly does, but one man had a very unlucky start to the race. In fact, he crashed just 15 minutes into the race before the race had actually started. Andre Greipel, a man who is an outsider to win the stage today, and it was all right at the back end of the main field. A little bit embarrassing, I would have to say.
Yes, Andre Greipel, always kept out of the Tour by Mark Cavendish. He was on the same team, but now he's changed teams. He's got his chance in the Tour de France. He's a first-timer, and he's also the first faller. Now, this is the Passage du Gois. Actually, for twice a day, the tide comes and goes, and this is totally underwater. You can only trace it by the little spikes, like snow markers across the estuary. You certainly cannot drive over it on those occasions. But they've timed it right, and the crowd are there, and there's no sign of the sea. So this was the big star, Christian Prudhomme in the purple shirt there, the director of the Tour de France. So we are underway. We've just gone over the Passage du Gois. And can you believe this? I think we can. It's the Tour de France, Paul. A breakaway forming immediately of 3 riders.
And everybody wants to get out on the course as quickly as possible, especially when it is the Tour de France. The first 3 riders, Jeremy Roy of France, Perica Kermener from France as well, and Louis Wiestre of the Netherlands getting into an early breakaway and setting up a fairly smart advantage.
Meanwhile, another crash, and involved in this one was Anthony Charteau, who was the king of the mountains in this event last year. Deja vu, I'm afraid, because in this year's Tour of South Africa, he crashed on the first day of that race too and broke his collarbone. And there's another one gone down from Omega Pharma Lotto. Spectator getting the best view there. This is amazing, but this is a nervous part of the Tour de France.
The first stage is always nervous, Phil, when it's a road stage, because everybody knows at the end of today, if you can get your line across the wheel across the line in first place, you will be the first leader. I'm not really sure how this happened at all, because you can see all the arms going up there. These guys were trying to warn the riders behind. There was a metal object in the middle of the road. All of a sudden, the Omega Pharma Lotto rider on the right-hand side went down extremely hard.
Just And that's TJ Van Garderen, also the American there in his first tour. Let's have a look at the weather, and it's a beautiful day. 74 degrees Fahrenheit, slight wind, but there are winds which could trouble the riders today, and the forecast is sunny throughout the day. A perfect day for the start of the 98th Tour de France. And of course, all of our pictures from the Tour de France are available in high definition. I suggest you that's what you get, because the pictures are stunning as we make our journey over the next 3 weeks. And the number of riders on the start line, 198. Usually about 30% won't make it to Paris. 22 of the best teams in the world have made the split for the Tour de France. We're going to follow these guys, Paul, with on the pulse.
Well, it gives us an idea of just how hard the race is. Thomas Vaitkus, Christian Knies of Germany, Martin Bouffaz of France, and René Zingel of Belgium will get out onto the course occasionally to see what their heart rate is doing, and that will give us an indication of just how difficult it is. Well, this is the Omega Pharma Lotto rider who went down just a little bit ago, Jürgen van der Walle, and he's being paced back into the main field by his teammate there just in front of him.
Yes, we'll see a lot of teamwork helping each other survive the long 3-week race to Paris. Jürgen van der Walle, number 37 there. And just coming up behind him is Santa Romita, an Italian on the American BMC racing team, who's riding in his first Tour de France. They're all learning the tough way today, aren't they? 2 first-timers are in that 3-man breakaway. Louis Westra from the Vacances Soleil team, and Pierre Caymeneur of the Europe car.
Well, just looking down here, Phil, as we go out towards the Chateau de Grange-Catou. This was actually first constructed in the 10th century. Since after that, it was destroyed and built back up again in the 14th century after his return from the wars of Italy by Jean Catou.
Well, I must say they've done a jolly good job down there rebuilding that. You see in the time gap at around about 4 minutes 44 seconds. They went at the 0 kilometre of the day in the first few hundred yards of the race. Jeremy Roy, well, he's 27 years of age, Jeremy Roy right now. He won the first race in Europe this year, the Grand Prix Marseillais in France, and he's only ever won 3 races, but he's a name we often speak about in front of the cameras.
Well, the French would always be looking for an early breakaway here at the Tour de France, especially on day 1, as there are no time bonuses, and of course there has been no prologue time trial. Fabien Cancellara, the man who over the last couple of years has been the dominant rider in the opening prologue at the Tour de France, actually says, Phil, that he's enjoyed his rather relaxed lead up to the Tour.
Well, let's see if it produces results as we unfold. The other man in the breakaway, Leo Wester, his first tour for him. He's nearly 29 years of age now. He's had a few wins, but he's never ridden the Tour de France. I was quite surprised at that, Paul. I thought I'd seen him in this race before, but big moment for him as well.
It certainly is. That 3-man breakaway group were allowed to form an advantage of almost 7 minutes, and then the main field decided that's starting to get just a little bit too far off. So 1 or 2 teams went to the front, started to set the pace making. They've brought it back down now to a fairly sensible 4.5 minutes or so, and that is, I think, fairly comfortable for the riders in the main field. But I do think in a couple of kilometres time we'll see a very serious sprint for the first and only sprint point out on the course. An innovation in the Tour de France this year. Instead of having 3 points out on the course where the riders could get points, they've only got 1.
Well, as the riders come back together, let's just check in. We've got a nice surprise for you today, because in the bottom right of our picture we've got a car cam in there today. That's the car of Garmin Cervelo, and Jonathan Vaughters is on the left of our picture. He's the man behind the team, and we're going to try and hear during our coverage exactly what they're saying. He's alongside the team manager there, Hernandez. Routine day at the moment, a break of 3, a nice little gap, still 75 miles to go. At Avrillé we'll have the first sprint for those green jersey points, and we'll see how the big sprinters tackle that, which will include Garmin Cervelo's Tyler Farah. With the blue skies, massive crowds at the start of the Passage du Gois. There's a massive crowd at the finish, and it is a difficult hilltop finish as well. The peloton getting to know themselves now, because these are their bedmates for the next 3 weeks here, like them or not. And the 3 riders who got away, Leo Westra of Vacances Soleil, Pierre Caymeneur of the Europe car team, and Jeremy Roy of the Française des Jeux team, they jumped away as soon as the flag was pulled in, and they've been away ever since. So they've been away now for about 2.25 hours.
Yeah, they have. They've dominated the first part of this race. Interesting to note that it's Omega Pharma Lotto have put a man to the front end of the main field, and I think your big pre-race favourite is going to have a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. The newly crowned champion of Belgium, and there he is, almost on cue, and of course Philippe Gilbert.
Gilbert is having one of those seasons that professionals can only dream about. His 13th win of the year was the weekend before we started here. Last Sunday he won the Belgian Championship title, but he's won so many major races this year, but he's never had a good Tour de France, and he's about to put that to rights, I think. And he's a good man to pick for the day's finish, Paul, because nearly all his wins this season have been on finish lines similar to where we are.
Well, he's got incredible form, and it's a very steep climb. I'm not sure whether it's steep enough for him. A quick look here at Frank Schleck, and he's, in fact, Andy Schleck, sorry. And he's looking.
I'm glad you got mixed up, because I live with it all my life.
No, the Schleck brothers, I think, are going to be a formidable duo in this Tour de France, and as long as Frank Schleck doesn't crash out as he very early stages of the Tour de France, I think those two together are going to be a real thorn in the side for Alberto Contador.
End of the day, let's talk about the green jersey now. We've got 3 riders out in front, but the new rules for the green jersey competition, we're heading to that S, which is the sprint point for the day, and it carries big points this time around. There's not 3 or 4 of them, just 1, so we can expect a lot of riders here going for the valuable points, probably Cavendish, Farah, etc. So as we pan around here, the beautiful chateau of Talmont, we're getting ever closer now to that sprint point, Paul. It comes at 87 miles from the finish, or 187 kilometres rather, 104 kilometres into the race. And so we're going to see then a battle royale, I think, as the riders go for that sprint, even though the sprinters on this occasion are only going to be sprinting for 4th place.
Doesn't matter. It's all about points. It's all about making sure you get points on every individual stage if you want to win the green jersey. And don't forget that Thor Hushovd, although a sprinter, actually won his points competition on a breakaway in the mountains.
Well, these 3 boys got away at 0 kilometres. They've still got quite a measured time gap of inside 4 minutes now. They were out to a maximum of nearly 7. And they won't be wiped out before that sprint point at the town of Avrillé. So they'll get the maximum 20 points. The one will who wins the sprint anyway, and the 3 of them will get the high points. But the sprinters are locked together back in that field, and they'll take each other on. It's also a dress rehearsal, isn't it, Paul? The sprinters will want to know who's going well today.
It'll be a first indication of how serious they're going to take this new rule change, and I think we will see almost, as you say, Phil, a dress rehearsal for the finish. We'll see the big lead-out trains coming to the front end of the main field, and it might give us an inkling into just exactly how Team HTC High Road are going to try and lead out Mark Cavendish, because when we talked to them just the other day, they didn't reveal which way round they were going to line themselves up for the lead-out train.
We'll have to the beautiful crowd here at the Vendée. The Tour de France remains as popular as ever here, especially on a day like today with clear blue skies and a good forecast ahead. Tomorrow, by the way, the team time trial was extremely popular, not very far away from where the riders are right now in Les Essarts, and it's not a very long team time trial either. So that will be a very interesting event, and we expect teams with ambition for final victory. They've got to do good times tomorrow and keep their men in the action. So Contador, Saxo Bank team, Bradley Wiggins, Sky team, High Road must do well, HTC High Road. They've all got to react tomorrow, and Garmin Cervelo as well.
So that's Avrillé where the sprint is. It's 3 kilometres, 1.8 miles. These 3 riders at the front, so they're not too concerned about getting themselves in the right position just now. It's in the main field where the peloton have got to get themselves organised. The safest sprint you can have is actually one that is led out from a long way and strings out the main field, because if it's a slow sprint and you don't get yourself stretched out into a long line before you get to the sprint, I have to say a lot of riders start to take risks, and that makes it a dangerous sprint.
Now we've got it. Now we've got nearest camera here, the Lampre team from Italy, looking to lead out Alessandro Petacchi. On the left-hand side is the white, yellow, black jerseys of Mark Cavendish. They're looking to lead him, and others are butting in. Andre Greipel's Oma Pharma Lotto team are coming in.
Well, it's quite interesting here, because on the left-hand side you've got HTC High Road in a very good, perfect line. On the other side of the road you've got Team Lampre, and starting to get themselves organised in the middle, the men in Argyle, a Team Garmin Cervelo. And I wonder who their man is going to be for the sprint on the Platte. I would bet it will be Tyler Farah.
Well, obviously so, and I can see the slightly changed colours of Sky now. They've got a green central large band. That's because they're supporting the loss of rainforest here, and they're fighting to protect the environment, so they've changed to green this year. And I must say I support them in that. and they're looking to try and give Ben Swift a perfect start as well. Well, this is the last kilometre to the sprint, and the first time I've ever seen it is a kite in the sky. It's a green one to mark the last kilometre. The last kilometre of the race is red, and that's because this now in the Tour de France is the only sprint of the day, but it carries a lot of points, and it is ultimately important for anybody with the sprinter's ambition. A very, very good innovation, I think.
Well, I think if it's a green sign for the 1 kilometre to go, maybe the guy in the green jersey, Peric Kemener, is going to get himself the victory here, because then it would be a full set.
Well, he's never won a pro race. He's a new young pro. He's been a pro, what, 3 or 4 years now. But this man here from Europcar has got the pressure of the company just down the road. So we're now looking at about coming up to 500 metres to the sprint here for the 3 leaders. I think they will sprint it out. And normally at this stage of the race we'd see them ride through, but there's big points now for the green jersey. And as going through now, it's Vestre from Vacansoleil, followed by Kemener, who I feel like Paul here, he'd be my bet to win, but we'll see, because now Leo Vestre is going to open up the sprint, looking to see who's going to come. Kemener has never won a bike race, but he's French, and that makes a difference, being stalked by Jeremy Roy, another Frenchman, and it's Roy who goes. Good name that. The king has just taken off, and it looks as though he's going to get the first points of this newly scoring competition for the green jersey. He gets 20 points for the win. It's a terrific result. It's as many as you would get if you won the time trial on the penultimate day of this Tour de France. So it is Roy getting it, and Vestre second, and we must stop picking people forward because our man just finished there.
That was very unfortunate. Maybe I gave him the kiss of death there. Well, those riders will pick up 20, 17 and 15 points. Now, the first rider to cross the line from the main field will get himself a good chunk of 13 points, down to just a single point for the 15th rider across the line.
And that is going to be a sprint royale, because those points could decide the green jersey in Paris. They finished that close in the past. In fact, I remember the Aussie Stuart O'Grady losing the green jersey in Paris on the last sprint of the day to the German cyclist Eric Zabel, who, by the way, is now training Mark Cavendish.
Well, the main field are certainly starting to queue up, because they're the ones now who are going to sprint across the line, only looking for 4th place. But as you mentioned, Phil, the green jersey can be won and lost by a single point after 3 weeks of racing, and nobody wants to do that. I think obviously you can see left-hand side, Alessandro Petacchi's team. This is almost like a drag strip. A rider swinging off there. I think that will be Lars Bak. Don't be surprised to see Tom Boonen too far away from Team Quick Step.
As you look down, Paul, we've got 2 teams definitely trying to get control, but the right-hand bend has pushed both trains together here onto the far right of the road, and it's advantage Petacchi just now, with the Omega Pharma Lotto boys trying to get in, and Philippe Gilbert, the blacktop champion of Belgium, also willing to work here for Andre Greipel.
Greipel's in 4th position in that line of Omega Pharma Lotto. Big acceleration now, little moving up to the front there. The champion of Holland is making himself aware at the front end of the main field. This is going to be for Petacchi, and all of a sudden HTC High Road seem to have got themselves swamped.
Well, 35 and going up in miles per hour now. Everybody checking out where the sprinters are, and it could well be Greipel has got himself in the best place here as they open up the sprint for the line now. Petacchi is the 3rd wheel of the centre line as he tries to make a run, but we're coming, and in fact Gilbert is washed away. 1 or 2 bumps there has pushed the Cavendish into a disadvantage here. You would never see a sprint like this normally for 4th place in the green jersey, but now they're rewinding it up here as they start to go for the line. We've still got Cavendish in the hunt.
Cavendish there in 2nd position. Looks like Tom Boonen on his wheel there in 3rd position in the blue and white there. That is the shape of Boonen in 3rd position. Over on the left-hand side, you can see Garmin Cervelo trying to get themselves wound up, but here comes the big move on the right.
Well, Cavendish is looking at them. He's playing with them, but watch out, because Farah's gone over the top, and Cavendish was not paying attention. And Tyler Farah and Andre Greipel go head-to-head, and Cavendish has said, that's enough for me. He had that one, Paul. He thought nobody was going to come and challenge him.
Well, he wasn't expecting the challenge to come so hard and fast out there on the road. Now look at this. This is the American rider in the middle in the blue helmet, Tyler Farah, just getting the better there of Greipel, who looks over his shoulder as if to say, so where are you, Mr. Cavendish?
Well, what that's done now is Farah gets up in the finish when we come down to the line at Les Herbiers. He could be in the green jersey at least tonight, even if he doesn't win the stage, because that is a very valuable 13 green jersey points in the bank. Now look at this. Now Cavendish was almost going easy. Now he's making his traditional move, but not wanting to overuse his energy. But then when it all happens from Farah, he looks again and thinks, heck, I've made a mistake here, and he's totally swamped out of it.
Yeah, but what goes through a sprinter's mind? Once you know you're beaten, you feel defeated, you just give up, and that's why all of a sudden Cavendish has said, well, forget about that. I'm not getting maximum points here this afternoon. I'll save it all for the finish line.
Well, that was a little bit of a surprise here. These are the Movistar team here, which is a new team on the block, and back on Soleil, who we're looking at the moment. Leopard Trek here. And Philippe Gilbert, few deep breaths, but job well done there by the American Tyler Farah. He's taken the point, and he does a lot more than just give you points. It gives you a great confidence boost as well. So as we look there at the peloton snaking its way as it continues now through the beauty of the Vendée region of France, we have gone through the sprint. The knife and fork there means we're approaching the feed, but it's not a sit down one, it's grab your bag and keep going. So we've seen one American in action, Paul, today, Tyler Farah. What's that going to do to Mark Cavendish, because he made a real mess of that sprint?
I think he just got caught out. He was expecting to accelerate very quickly. He wasn't expecting that big break to come from Tyler Farah on the left-hand side. I don't think he'll do anything. He'll get himself into a different concentration for the finishing line. But it is interesting to know that when I was racing, there were probably only 3 or 4 English-speaking riders in the international circuit. There was myself, Sean Kelly, the Irishman, and Jonathan Boyer, the American. Now you've got 10 Americans at the start of the Tour de France this year, and of course 4 American teams, and let's not forget one British team too, Team Sky.
Well, as I said earlier, George Hincapie riding the Tour for a record equaling time. He won't actually claim the #1 spot because Joop Zoetemelk, who's ridden 16 tours, finished every one, and George hasn't finished all 16, but he certainly started 16 now, so he will go in second place, but that's more than anybody else apart from Joop Zoetemelk has attempted in the Tour. These are the narrow roads of this beautiful little town at 95 kilometers still to ride to the finish. Been changed since. That is an incredible situation. Now this is from the farmers of the Vendée here, and just look at this. They put all the straw bales out, they've bailed out the quads, and they're going round in circles. I just hope they've got enough gas to go by. This is from the farmers of the Vendée. So there's the main peloton, and it looks as though they're getting under the control again of sprinters teams here, because remember we do have this 3-man breakaway away, and it's gone out a bit now. 4 minutes and 36 seconds, so the elastic is stretching again. Meanwhile, the concertina of the peloton is under the control of one squad. Well, from the helicopter here now to the red roofs of the Vendée region, as we continue to see the riders here at the back. The quick-step rider there is Sylvain Chavanel, the new French champion, and richly deserves his title as well. Sylvain, he was a bit of a hero in the Tour de France in the early days last year. You may recall when they were in the pouring rain in the Ardennes and the riders were wanting not to race and go on strike. Chavanel was making the most of that. He would have he kept his yellow jersey. He lost it on the cobblestones. He won it back. He had a very good opening week to the Tour last year.
No, he certainly did. It was amazing to see him win the yellow jersey, lose it, then get it back once again.
Yeah.
He is a very strong rider. He's very well respected within Team Quickstep, and a strong supporter of riders like Tom Boonen when it comes to the cobbled classics. And in the early part of his career, he spent most of his time riding for Team Cofidis, but he actually said he wanted to go to Belgium to learn how to ride the one-day classics, and he's earned an awful lot of his trade across the border in Belgium.
Cheers all the way today for the Tour de France. The French are never happy when this race is off and running for the month of July, because that's the famous holiday period here in France, and many of the French make the way to the roadsides to follow the Route du Tour. It's going out, Paul, and this so often happens after that big sprint at Avrillé. It's now gone out to 4:36, and well, they've always got a chance. There is the leader of the King of the Mountains competition. Unfair advantage, I think.
No, certainly. I think that you'll start to see that the main field will be attentive now. who'll be extremely attentive at the front end of the main field, and they will keep a very close watch on the gap. And once they start to feel it is dangerous, what they will do is they'll pick up the pace making. And you can see that line of riders at the front end of the peloton. Well, that's a number of teams getting themselves organized, starting to pick the pace up to keep that three-man breakaway in check. And again, not a surprise to see Omega Pharma Lotto. They, as I've said, have got a two-pronged attack here at the end of today. It could be either for Philippe Gilbert, and of course it could be for their big man Andre Greipel, who's been on the ground, as has the man on the front end of the main field, number 37, Jürgen van der Walle, who was involved in a very nasty crash just a little while back. It really is quite a long way to go. Let's keep something in the bag, because we're going to have to do an awful lot of work later on.
Well, there they are. This is a Belgian-based team, Omega Pharma Lotto. They're not all Belgian riders on. They've got 3 or 4 Germans making up the whole squad, including Andre Greipel. Well, since we got off to a rather rocky start, quite literally across the Passage du Gois, we had Andre Greipel fall off early on. We've had Anthony Charteau, when the King of the Mountains last year, fall off, but okay. And we've had 1 or 2 other riders fall off, but all getting their early souvenirs on the roads of the Vendée, as
taking the maximum you can out of the weakest link in the chain, and that's the important thing, and that's why a lot of teams have invested time and money into making sure that they can get this team time trial right.
I like that. Good analogy. The weakest link in the chain. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We're looking here at Jeremy Roy, who's won just a handful of races in his life, but he always knows how to get in front of the TV cameras, and he's kept on the FDJ squad because he's such a strong rider. The pack, though, in no hurry once again as we go out to 5:33. It's a little rise. There's 1 or 2 nasty little rise here. I actually had the pleasure of riding with some of the VIPs with Garmin-Cervelo yesterday morning. Can you believe that's the first time I've ridden a bicycle on the Tour de France in 25 years, but they gave me a terrific machine, Cervelo did, and it was the S5, brand new. They said it went well up hills. Well, it must have done, because I wasn't dropped on the climbs with the boys, but we went around these beautiful lanes, and it made me wish that perhaps if I could just get rid of the Tour de France, I could stay behind and go for a quiet ride. We're looking at Bradley Wiggins sporting for the first time the National Road Race Champions colours for Great Britain, because he has actually just won that title a week ago. He's also the National Time Trial champion, so he gets to wear the British Champions colours in all events this year. Now, well, it's interesting to see that the Americans have put Dave Zabriskie on the front of the pack now, and that, of course, will be for Thor Hushovd, I think. So Hushovd looking for the support of Garmin-Cervelo now, and the tempo is clearly lifted up, and look how the clock has started to descend so quickly here. Now they've turned angry again. The parting of the ways, they're coming up to togetherness, and the gap is 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And coming down reasonably quickly now. This is a beautiful area, I've said it before, but the undulations here now as we go through the plane trees here in western France. And everybody wants to get the nose to the front now. They sense we're getting to the serious section of the day stage.
Might see the Saxo Bank riders over on the left-hand side. What they're doing is keeping Alberto Contador at the front end of the main field, and that is Alberto Contador just peeking through their fill with his yellow sunglasses on.
Well, the thing about the route today, now we've had pretty flat roads since we left the Passage du Gois, which obviously is at sea level and sometimes below sea level. But towards the end of the day now, we do start to undulate quite a little bit as we go over these small monts, these little hills, as we head towards the finish itself. And once we go over the high spot of the day, we'll go down towards the valley, but not to sea level where we are just now. Then you've got that little climb up to the finish in the outskirts of Les Herbiers.
Yeah, that little climb up to the finish, Phil, at 2 kilometers is going to get 1 or 2 riders unstuck. Just down there in the middle, you might just notice that monument. That's the monument to Georges Clemenceau, who lived between 1841 and 1929. He was a doctor until 1885, then a journalist, and then he was elected mayor of the commune of Montmartre.
Yes, and the German soldiers in the Second World War broke off the head, and it was replaced rather fittingly after the war was over. But full to ride with him. He wore the yellow jersey once in the Alps a few years ago. So we'll see. I think he'll be okay, and he's not here to win the Tour, but he's going to have a tough ride to get back on.
But again, Phil, that's an indication of why you have to ride at the front end of the main field, because the majority of these accidents are at the back. Another one of the chateaus. This is a 15th century chateau we're looking at now. It was built by Philibert of Saint-Fleuve, and that was it was actually renovated and wasn't inhabited until the 17th century, when it was burnt down once again during the French Revolution.
Yes, and apparently there were 7 towers at one stage. Don't look like 7 to me at the moment, but it is still another beautiful example of French architecture. Now, the riders chasing behind the field at the moment, Linus Gerdemann, and I didn't recognise that guy from Europcar. Paul, did you get a tag on? I think it was Pierre Roland, but I wasn't sure.
Well, he went down very hard, and fortunately for him, it was a soft landing over to the right-hand side, because he managed to dive into the grass. If it had been a concrete road there, he would have had a very difficult, hard landing.
Well, just look at the edge. The breakaway are still finding the strength to push on here and keep this chase, and going to make the others work very hard to bring them back. 32 miles, 51 kilometers to race. They won't give up yet for sure.
Concerned as far as their sponsors are concerned, it's getting the team brand in front of television viewers all around the globe, whether it's France, Belgium, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, or even South America.
All breathe in. There's always those that go the wrong way. Never mind, they're all missing the stop sign. That's the most important thing. Well, nearly all missing the stop sign, yes, as they get round that right hand bend. A little bit of practicing for the mountain bike season there, but they're all safely round. As the field, see, the boys at the back have to really kick out of those corners and get back up to speed very quickly. It makes it very hard for riders at the back of the pack. The boys at the front are already settled down again, and they're not using so much energy. 5 minutes of racing left. These 3 boys have grabbed the television ever since the drop of the flag, as they continue now to head up the charge to the finish. As we're watching the 3 riders up there briefly, we're now looking back 69 seconds or so down the road, and it is the team of Miga Pharma Lotto, the team of the champion of Belgium, Philippe Gilbert, who are whipping up the charge now to try and get those 3 back in the fold.
Big wide roads that we're going on now, these undulating roads, are not good for this 3-man breakaway, because as we can start to pull back, we will see the relationship between the main field, and the leading group of riders. They have now finally got their prey in sight.
Yes, just literally in front of them now. It's a bit closer than they appear, but it's still about a minute. But the peloton now fanned right across the highway here, and they're going to have to split when they get to the end of it. Now they're all wondering who's going to finish it all off. Now comes the tactics now of cat and mouse. Nobody wants to finish anything off. Now what's up with Jens Voigt? Gone back for a chat.
Well, he's gone back to fill up. He's been to the bar to...
Oh, steady.
Careful.
Oh, dear me.
Well, I tell you what, he's gone back to fill up. You're allowed to take drinks on board up until 20 kilometers to go, but usually at 20 kilometers to go, the pressure is on so much that nobody wants to go back. So he's gone for the last possible time to make sure he can get as many drinks as possible for the team. I'm just trying to count how many he's taken on board there. 3, 4, 5, 6, and possibly a 7th.
Now he's got to go and find the boys in the big pack. Not an easy task when they're all going. That's the professional restart.
Well,
a bit of a push.
He has loaded up with 7 individual bottles there. He's probably carrying pretty close to 14 pounds of water, which he's got to drag through the main field and distribute to the rest of the lads
as quickly as possible, because he wants to get rid of that weight, of course. Meanwhile, we've gone back to the leaders here, who have now been just over 4 hours out front. There's that roundabout we saw. Took about a minute to get to it in the end, and they've come together again in a big pack. Now comes the old tactic where they see them and they let them fry beneath the afternoon sun, because they really don't want to finish them off just yet. We're into the undulations of the back end of the course. Gone is the plateau around the Atlantic Ocean, and these are the ripples now of the Vendée as we go towards the finish outside of Les Herbiers.
They've still got a little bit of a false flat to drag up to. The high spot of the day is the finishing line, Phil, at a massive 232 meters above sea level, which is around about 600 to 700 feet.
But it's explosive power. It's not a long, steady climb, and the guys who want to win are going to have to get it right as we pass under this bridge here. Again, plenty of spectators. They've probably got time to get back to the cars and get round to Les Herbiers. They may not get up to the finishing line, though, because that road's been closed all day. and there's plenty of campers that have been in position for the last 2 days since we've been here.
Nice little sign there for one of the local boys up the stage, Vaucler on t'adore, which means Thomas Vaucler, we love you. And they certainly do. They love his racing style, and they love the way, and we actually love the way that he's raced this year, because he had a phenomenal season so far.
He had.
Pharma Lotto, Phil, have done an excellent job today. They're trying to set this race up for their team leader, Philippe Gilbert, the champion of Belgium.
13 times Gilbert has won, and a lot of them on similar finishes as today, this year alone, so they've got the right to have all the confidence they need. But there's a lot of boys feel the confidence today, because there are no time bonuses as there are in races around the world, whereas the winner will receive a small amount of a second off his overall time for the day. So it quite literally means the man that wins will be, there's the devil, he's a bit far back today, Paul, will actually win the first yellow jersey.
Yeah, that's the important thing. That's a different thing this year in the Tour de France. There are no time bonuses on the finishing line. There'll be no time bonuses out on the course, and the first man to cross the finishing line will become the wearer of the first yellow jersey. No prologue time trial either this year, slightly different, and it will make it extremely interesting tomorrow as well, going into the team time trial around the small town of Les Essarts.
Time to pull up the white flag, because here come the whole of the Tour de France at 19 kilometers from the finish. They broke away in a kilometer one. They have been caught with just 19 kilometers left to go. No handshake, boys? Yes, I thought that would be the case. They help each other, but it hasn't worked. They're into the pack. They'll hang on for as long as they can, but I suspect they'll be the last three riders to make the finishing line today.
Well, you have to admit, they went out on their breakaway. They looked for a chance. They looked for an opportunity. Okay, it didn't work on this occasion. Sometimes during the Tour de France, I think this year we will see a number of times that the breakaway will survive.
I think you're absolutely right, Paul. This is going to be a very aggressive Tour de France, and a pretty exciting one too. Won't get those conditions up at the finish today, I can tell you, but on that particular sprint he could hardly get out of the saddle, it was so windy.
Well, there was a big line of HTC High Road riders on the right-hand side of that main field, led by Bernie Eisel. They obviously realised this is a great day for them this afternoon. Trying to catch a glimpse to see whether or not they've got Matty Goss in front of Mark Cavendish or behind him.
So the field now continued to be driven on by Gene here from the Europcar team. Not surprisingly, Paul, because this is the company with the big interest in the area here of the Vendée. And they feel with Thomas Vaucler, they can deliver him to the summit as well. This is what I think we expected today. Vaucler wants to win this stage. He goes under 15 kilometers to go. Now, if you're not strong now, you cannot get to the front to deliver your sprinter up there.
Well, way back in 2004, Thomas Vaucler was the national champion of France. He came to the Tour de France and he grabbed the yellow jersey and he held on to it for 10 days. And later that year, he finished 20th in the Olympic road race in Athens. Now he's trying to get himself and grab himself not only a stage victory on the opening day of the Tour de France, but another yellow jersey.
And somebody just sent the message to the back of the race there, because that's the other Europcar rider, the last one at the back here, who's trying to move back up towards the front to give them all a helping hand. 9 miles to go now, 14 kilometers from the finish. This is the back of the peloton now. You can see how hard it is now just simply to keep on to the chain of the riders here now. It is very, very grippy indeed. Look at the length of the long, thin line of riders.
Well, the rider second from the back there is Sandy Cassar. The rider popped right on the back is John Gadret of AG2R. These guys are the climbers, and they don't like this kind of speed at all.
Oh boy, this is not the place to be here now at the back, because they are driving at the front now as fast as they can go. And when they run out of energy, they simply get out of the way and make room for whoever sits behind them. This is eyes down for the finish now. 8.5 miles to go. The last mile is all uphill to the line. We're just 10 kilometers. That's just on 6 miles from the finish of the opening day of the Tour de France, and the whole field is together now. The pressure is being applied principally by about 5 teams just now to try and line up their strong men. I don't know whether to call them sprinters or climbers for this tricky finish at the end on the Les Monts d'Alouette, which is the Skylark Hill. As we slip towards the back of the race now, this is Pierre Rolland, who looks as though he's in the spot of bother now as he tails off the back of the field. Well, there's no doubt. Oh, and there's been, we're looking to the left here now as we see all of these riders here Now this is a massive pile-up, Paul. I just caught a glimpse of it outside of my eye, and that's just happened.
Well, let's have a look at where it's happened, because it's over on the right-hand side, and it's gone down very hard indeed, and that has blocked the main field. Wow. This is why, Phil, inside of the last 20 kilometres, you've got to ride in the front. Now, it's difficult to see just exactly whether or not any of the big leaders were involved in that accident there. And in fact, it was a spectator who just was standing too close into the road there, and a rider from Astana went down very hard. It actually looked like Alexander Vinokourov.
Well, let's hope there's nobody injured there, but that was a massive pile up, and it's come at the most crucial stage of the charge for the finish and completely split the peloton here. Well, time now really does matter if any of the potential candidates of final victory. It happened on the right of the road there, and it looked as though a rider from Astana did clip the side of a spectator, and he ricocheted left, unfortunately, right into the pack, which took out a lot of riders. Now they've got to split.
Well, when the road gets blocked like that, the riders behind, they have to stop. Then they've got to get themselves back up to full speed. These guys are racing for the victory of the stage this afternoon. Again, this is why, Phil, all of the big leaders of the race, even if they don't want to try and win the stage, try a ride at the front end of the main field to avoid this. That was a very nasty crash. I didn't see what happened to the spectator, but everyone went down very hard.
Yes, and the trouble is it's caused a split. Now, the field at the front will continue to race here. They will not know the extent of that crash because they didn't see it. And they've got a split on the road now, and we're not sure who's been caught behind. So, as we see the race now, they are 3.8 miles from the finish, and there is a very definite split on.
Thomas Voeckler there in the green jersey. He's looking very nervous, looking left and right, staying right up in the first 4-5 positions. Also, Philippe Gilbert very comfortable on the right-hand side in the black, yellow and red jersey, champion of Belgium. I have to say, BMC Racing have done an excellent job in keeping Cadel Evans up at the front of the pack. That's why all of these other teams over the last few kilometres were riding near the front of the pack, not to win the stage, but to avoid an accident like that.
5.5 kilometres to go now. It is an absolute scramble to get the result of the first stage. There is Alberto Contador playing with his little radio piece. And now, I'm not sure where he is, but I think he might be on the offensive here to try and chase up to the lead group. He's got his whole team working for him. So Contador, like the day when we went down to La Grande Motte a couple of years ago, is losing seconds to men who may matter later on in the Tour de France.
When you're the man who's the defending champion, you've got to remain calm in a moment like this. This is only one day, Phil, out of 22 days of racing. It won't be good for his morale, but he can't panic. He can't push himself into the red zone. He's got to look around, use his team, and hope that maybe on the final ascent up to the line that he can try and pull back a few seconds. Now it's Radio Shack. Jaroslav Popovic on the front end of the main field with a big R on his shoulder. He is thinking about this. Hincapie in second, third position there on the left-hand side with the white glasses. He's looking over his shoulder. Come on, Cadel Evans, you can stay with me. This could be a very interesting point. We're looking here, Phil. 31 seconds Contador has lost at this point.
This is what you said earlier, Paul, because Cadel Evans was riding at the front to keep himself out of trouble, and it's not just kept him out of trouble at the moment, it's working in his favour. These are huge time gaps when you've lost the Tour by 23 and you're half a minute ahead. That could be the Tour in 3 weeks' time. You just don't know at 2.7 miles to go.
This, Phil, is why Andy Schleck and his team were riding at the front end of the main field, because they know on the first day of the Tour de France it's nervous. They know there can be crashes left and right, and that has been what we've seen here. Richie Porte is in this group as well, number 5 there, the teammate of Alberto Contador. This Tour de France today could be going against Alberto Contador.
Well, Porte is there to support Contador, and that's what he's doing right now. He was riding close to him when the situation occurred. Radio Shack and BMC, the two American teams, and HTC High Road have got themselves in perfect position here. Remember, George Hincapie in his 16th Tour, he's seen it all before.
He has seen it all before, that is for certain, because now we can see BMC getting it worked up at the front. Third place there is Bernie Eisel, the Austrian rider. It's out to 36 seconds now for Alberto Contador. He's not going to pull back any of that time here, Phil, because these guys are full on for the stage victory here this afternoon. Andreas Kloden of Radio Shack has made the junction. All of the big leaders have been very attentive. It would appear to me only one man has been caught out, and that is the defending champion. He's in this group with 2 miles to go. Alberto Contador, there he is.
Well, I doubt it is going to get back now in less than 2 miles to go. He is 36 seconds behind. Remember last year, Schleck lost the Tour to Contador by 39 seconds. At the moment, Contador has almost lost that to Schleck on the road on the first day of riding. Thor Hushovd is the world champion. He has made the front group, by the way. Has Hushovd. This is the chase group, and it's 36 seconds behind. And these are climbers in the orange jerseys. These are the men from northern Spain, the Basques, and they climb mountains, and they'll need the hill coming to try and shut down the gap just a little bit.
Well, it's not being shut down at all, because it's now up to almost 40 seconds in about 10th position there in the white jersey with the bands across the middle. You can see the man who's the world champion. That, of course, is Thor Hushovd.
Well, this has been an incredible turnaround at just about 8 kilometers from the finish. A crash has altered the destiny of the stage of the Tour de France. Well, it may not have done, because Philippe Gilbert is about 4th or 5th in the line here, and just on 2 kilometers from the finish.
Andre Greipel is not going for the win this afternoon. He's the man on the front. He's digging deep now to keep this pace nice and high, because in 3rd position you've got Philippe Gilbert. In 4th position you've got Thomas Voeckler. In 5th position you've got Damiano Cunego.
Well, that was a huge effort by Greipel. It lasted about 100 meters, because the big sprinter on the flat couldn't cope with the climb, as we're now heading up towards the finish. This is all the pressure on the man in black now, and he's only got 2 men left in front of him. And Thomas Voeckler is there. There's another crash here. We've gone back down the road. I'm not exactly sure where, but is this the Contador group in trouble again?
Well, there's a lot of riders are very nervous today, Phil. They really are taking all kinds of risks. It's the first day. We're looking here at inside of 3 kilometers to go. This group has been splintered completely, as Philippe Gilbert is in 3rd place.
Now, that's going to be a difficult call for the referees, because the 3 kilometers to go rule will come into play, but the race was already split, so they're going to have to sort that one out, and we'll have to go with whatever they decide. But these are the attacks we expected to come now, and that is a good move to aid the man in 3rd place, Gilbert. He needed somebody to put a big move in.
Well, I tell you what, Katusha have put the big attack in, but Philippe Gilbert is sitting and waiting. I spoke to somebody just before the start about how to win this stage here. You've got to wait. You've got to bide your time right down to the last moment. Right up there in 3rd position. It looks like Rojas is looking very comfortable indeed. Not too far away in the green jersey. Thomas Voeckler is looking ready to see whether or not he can pounce. The Spanish national champion, Phil, in 3rd position. Rojas has got an incredible turn of speed, especially at the top of a climb like this. Cunego's in 4th.
Well, Philippe Gilbert there telling his teammate to keep the pressure on for as long as he can by shaking his head in 2nd place. He doesn't want to be at the front yet. We've got to watch the right here of the row, because this is also another, and that looks to me like the little figure of Alexander Vinokurov, who's launched the attack. That was to be expected, and this is helping Gilbert. Voeckler has got 2nd wheel. Gilbert is 3rd. Hushovd is moving up as well. He's in about 6th place in the white jersey.
Bosenhagen is right up there as well, but here's Fabian Cancellara.
That is Fabian Cancellara, who has gone with a huge amount, and Gilbert recognised that one, because if Cancellara goes, you've got to counter. That is an absolute flyer, but you know, it's a long, long way to the finish off this bend as you sweep around the corner. Cancellara looking, and he's got trouble on his wheel. Gilbert does not want to go yet, but he may have no choice. He's got to jump and make it hard, because Cancellara is beaten by Cancellara. Gilbert kicks again. The champion of Belgium has got it. Well, he goes up towards the line now, and Cancellara, he made the move spot on, but Philippe Gilbert was right there in it. Now, can he hang on, Paul? Because this is desperate moments as Gilbert tries to hang on. He's got just about 500 meters to go.
We're coming up in 3rd place. Looks like Cadel Evans as well, because coming around this final corner, Philippe Gilbert really had the acceleration. He's got to keep going, though, because there's a long, interminable hill, and Cadel Evans is coming across the gap.
Oh, it's going to hurt the legs, but that's a result for Cadel Evans and for Philippe Gilbert. Win 14 for him. Cadel Evans has had a tremendous day. The favourite has got 2nd there, amongst the favourites, has got 2nd on a day that Contador has lost time. That's a big start now as the clock continues to count now. The seconds go by. Well, this is going to be a very unusual overall classification tonight, but there's no doubt the first maillot jaune will go to Philippe Gilbert.
Well, this is the group that contains Alberto Contador, and what's important now is the Omega Pharma Lotto boys continue to celebrate. Stuart O'Grady being swamped there by Alberto Contador. They'll be a little bit surprised to see that, but the time gaps have appeared. There's Contador over on the right-hand side with the yellow sunglasses.
He grits his teeth. He's got to keep going. The clock is counting against him here. We don't know if he was delayed in that second crash. I didn't see him, so I think we're looking at real time, although that clock is telling me he has been delayed in that crash, but we don't know. As they race up towards the line now, this is a massive loss to last year's winner as they come up towards the line here now. So as they race up towards the line, that clock is enormous. Now, we don't know whether some of this, Andy Schleck is in this group as well. So at least Contador and Schleck go in tomorrow in the same time. It looks about a minute 20. Contador now knows this has been a grim day in the Tour de France for him. Andy Schleck alongside him. Bradley Wiggins is there as well. So the big names finishing there. Well, again for Evans.
They must have been involved in that second crash because Bradley Wiggins was riding right at the front end of the main field. So I have a feeling that Andy Schleck and Bradley Wiggins went down in the second crash. But there's no doubt at all about the winner of the stage this afternoon, Philippe Gilbert of Belgium, and the champion to boot.
It was a tough old climb up there, I have to say, but Gilbert just about hung on as Evans came at him towards the end. But the big man to gain today is Cadel Evans, because he is a long-term prospect for Paris, and he's off to the perfect start with a second place. We'll have to wait and see the final time gaps, but on the face of it, they are very, very big, and they won't alter in the team time trial tomorrow, except we could see Cadel Evans in yellow.
Well, that was a dramatic run in towards the finish. Everybody said it was going to be a great first day of racing.
Well, just look at this now. There is the arrival of the champion. Isn't it fantastic? Your first day as a national champion of your country, and you win a stage of the Tour de France. Let's see if we can show you the results. Gilbert gets it by just 3 seconds over Evans. These are real time gaps. Thor Hushovd got third at the end of the day. He made his effort. Rojas fourth. Jürgen van der Broek, who worked a lot today, finished in fifth in the end. He's in sixth. Geraint Thomas in sixth place, rather. Cloden in seventh. Tarame, Chris Horner doing well today in ninth, and Tony Martin completing the top 10. All 6 seconds they lose to the man who won the day today. Gerdeman, who was off the back earlier, he was 11th. Frank Schleck was 12th, but his brother Andy has lost time today, that's for sure. Damiano Cunego, who finished second in the Tour of Switzerland, lost it on the final day. He is in 15th place. Yes, it is back, and we are ready. The team time trial returns to the Tour de France. A big battle amongst the race favourites, and just how strong are the teams. We will bring you the entire coverage of this second stage of the Tour, from the first team off to the last team to finish. And there's the crowd ready here in Les Essarts. This is the heart of the cycling capital of France.
Members start at 7-minute intervals in reverse order of the team standings. However, the finish is determined by the 5th rider to cross the finishing line, and every rider who finishes with that 5th rider gets the same time. Riders will take turns pulling at the front to set the pace, and of course pushing between teammates is completely forbidden.
I think this is the first time in the history of the team time trial that the last year's winner is in the first team to go. Alberto Contador, having lost that minute 20 yesterday, his whole team falling back to bring him home meant they finished with the slowest team time of the day. So they start first of the 22 teams. It'll be Philippe Gilbert's Omega Pharma Lotto team, who he won the stage yesterday. His team backed him up. They will be the last team to start, but that's a little way down the road now. Look at this wonderful crowd. You can see the cloud which has blown in. There's the man in the hot seat. Rather takes me back a few years, Paul, to Pedro Delgado in 1989, when he missed the start in his prologue time trial and then had a disastrous race in the team time trial when he was the defending champion.
He had to fight his way back. That's Alberto Contador on the left-hand side. Well, now we're seeing the whole team, all 9 riders, and that's what the team time trial is all about, Phil. It's a measure of the strength in set of a team.
The big cheers from the crowd. I didn't hear too many boos for Alberto Contador. Now he's on the back heel. Maybe there's a bit of sympathy forming here for him because he is a pretty popular guy. Is well documented appeal by the World Anti-Drugs Agency, still of course awaiting an opinion which won't come until the 1st of August. Now you get some idea as we see this team out. It's 7 minutes before the Euskaltel-Euskadi team takes to the road. And just look at this crowd here enjoying a lovely day in the Vendée region of France. They've really turned on the style here. It rather reminds me of the Winter Olympics in Albertville when they gave the Winter Olympics to Albertville, but they ran the events at 10 different venues. And that seems to be what we're doing today. We're having a veritable tour of the towns and villages of the Vendée yesterday and today. Now we're underway. The first thing they've got to do is slip into their formations and get used to riding with each other. This is an event which they don't ride very often, very rarely indeed in team time trial formation, Paul. So they will have trained for this day.
All of the teams who feel that they've got a chance of winning the Tour de France overall will have spent a lot of time and money and preparation to try and figure out what's the best line. And in fact, as you can see, just looking at the numbers of the riders, they're not consecutive. They've actually decided which is the best rider to follow, because some riders, when they go to the front, they accelerate too rapidly for a guy who has a different kind of engine.
Yes, and they mustn't destroy their riders either, Paul, because if they do, they'll weaken their team, and they've always got to wait for the 5th man, because that's where the times come from. Let's have a look at Contador's lineup. He wears number 1 as last year's winner. He's got Hernandez, Navarro, Naval, Richie Porte from Tasmania, first time in the Tour, but a good one. Chris Anker Sorensen and Nicky Sorensen, the 2 Danish riders. Matteo Tessato, he is an Italian, and Brian Van Borg. That's his makeup, all hand-picked. He believes these are the men which can defend him right the way through, but today he will rely on this very much indeed. There he is, he carries 1. He's winner of the Tour de France the last 2 years, and while you defend successfully, you keep that number. Now, these are
discipline that they've never really shone at over the years.
But they'll want to try and hail their team captain, Samuel Sanchez, number 21, because he is the Olympic champion. He's also the best man on this squad for a long-term bet for a reasonably high finish in the Tour de France, as they get 20 seconds to the start for this team from the Basque Country. And then they'll go down that little ramp there. Tense moments. And the next team to go will be the Vacances-Soleil. Had a man in the moves yesterday.
4, 2, 1, top.
And we're away. 9 riders, and they've never done a good team time trial. Perhaps a little bit better today, we can only hope. The big teams seem to be the specialists coming from the United States. Garmin Cervelo, HTC. Should be a good challenge from the Sky team from Great Britain. Radio Shack will also want to do a top performance because of Levi Leipheimer. Now, I'm not too sure why Contador's waving his finger around. It was number 7 who just waved his finger. That's Nicky Sorensen. Well, they want more speed, I think. They're really struggling at the moment to get into a rhythm. It looks a little bit ragged to me, this one, at the moment.
Well, it does. In fact, in this part of the course, what we should see if they're a well-drilled team time trial squad is they should be riding in a complete line. And because of the direction of the wind, there should be just one rider slipping back at a time, and that's not perfect at the moment. They need to get themselves organised. You see the rider now at the front. He's pulled over to the right-hand side. Number 8, he'll slip to the back of that group and get right into the wheel of Alberto Contador. Contador himself doesn't look quite that comfortable currently, but you can ride yourself into this.
15 kilometres, that's to the finish, by the way. A total distance today of 23 kilometres, just under 15 miles. And all of the way, this is the first team to start. Saxo Bank, they wouldn't have expected that when they were preparing for this. They would have normally have been in the last 4 teams to start and chasing somebody in front of them. So they're blazing the trail today after that accident yesterday, about 10 kilometres out from the finish by Alberto Contador. The whole team falling back to try and help him. And not a great job, I have to say, because he lost 1 minute and 20 seconds. And so we're looking down on the start and the finishing town of the time trial today at Les Essarts. We're looking down on Saxo Bank, and we saw him struggling, and indeed he's now been left behind. Ben Novell, who's riding his 6th Tour de France here. They have launched a terrific speed from the gun, Paul. He's been left behind, And, you know, if he finishes at more than 6 minutes behind that team, he could be eliminated from the race.
That's the difficult thing about the short team time trial here this afternoon. Vacansoleil have struggled for many, many years to earn themselves selection for the Tour de France, and finally they've managed to do it. Romain Felu is their leader, but he's actually a very good sprinter. Bjorn Leukemans, number 205, is a very fast Belgian rider, and Louis Vistre was in the breakaway yesterday. Now that's going to hurt his legs in a very violent effort. Well, that's one thing you have to understand about this, Phil. If you're a strong rider, it's a great discipline to ride because you're one of the strongest men in the team. But if you're one of the weakest riders in the team, you've got to pull yourself inside out to stay in contact sometimes.
Yes, and this team has got quite a number of first-timers in the Tour de France, so they don't have a great depth in experience. It's a new team to the Tour. They don't have a contender for final victory. They just want to get what they can out of the Tour. So they're not going to break their necks today to win this stage, I don't think. Now, as our camera again picks out Team Saxo Bank, which carries number 1 for the last 2 years, a champion in Alberto Contador. They have dropped already 1 man because of the speed. They are absolutely flying at the moment. They've gone through the first check of 9 kilometers, just over 5.5 miles in 9 minutes and 13 seconds. And having dropped a man, now the rule says that anybody who finishes behind the team by more than 30% of the time the team records will be eliminated from the Tour de France, and that will represent, we won't know till they finish the exact time, but 6 or 7 minutes, Paul, and he's dropped very early.
He has dropped very early on, and that's a surprise to me because Benjamin Noval is a very good time trialist, especially in an event like this. It may well be because of the speed that they've gone out of the box. Alberto Contador is trying to ride himself back into this year's Tour de France. On the other hand, I have to say that Euskaltel-Euskadi are looking fairly well organised here. You see the rider on the far side, Gorka Verdugo, number 29. He's done his turn at the front end of the line for probably around about 100 metres. He slips back and then he'll slip in behind number 28, and that is Ivan Velkasko. And then he will try and recuperate for a short while before moving his way straightway up to the front of that line to try and get himself back to the front again.
As we go back to the start to see the departure of the AG2R team from France. Countdown.
Nicolas Rocha on the right-hand side, who is looking to get himself a high position in the overall standings. He had a very nasty crash about a month ago, and I thought it may well prevent him from starting the Tour de France this year, but I think he's back to form.
So AG2R make their start. They're the 4th team to go of the 22 teams today. And we've gone back up to the leaders now. The time check of Saxo Bank's second check has gone through at 17 minutes. And we're now waiting for the arrival of the finish line here. I also think they're getting 3 kilometers to go here. So we've got 6 riders left. So we've actually lost 3 riders now.
Yes, another rider just tailed off a few minutes ago, and that's because of the severity of the pace. They've decided to go out extremely quickly. They were quite prepared to lose a few men out on the course. So the other man who's gone, I presume, is going to be Daniel Navarro.
Well, this team is blazing a lone trail because there's no target in front. Amazingly, the team that carries last year's Tour winner for the past 2 years finished last yesterday in the team race. So the first to start today. They've got no markers, and the big teams are all watching this on television before they ride. They'll know what they've got to do to match these splits. So they've got to go as fast as they possibly can, and they've got to show no regard for their weaker team. And they've kicked 3 of them off already. Now they've got to keep 5, that's for sure. The time is only taken on the 5th man over the line.
That puts...
Well, these beautiful towns are great for the tourists, and Les Essarts is no exception, but look at the way these narrow streets twist and turn. Very difficult to do in big formation like this, as you try to hang on here to the flying man up front, which I think is Chris Hanke Sorensen. As they now, remember, the clock will search the 5th man. They're not worried about Tessato on the back.
Well, it looks like Richie Porte now is going to lead him up to the line there for Team Saxo Bank. Right on his wheel is Alberto Contador. Contador may be riding himself back into the Tour de France today. One thing's for certain, Phil, it's going to be the first best time. It's
going to be the best time when they get there. Will it survive the day? Will Contador recoup a little bit of time he lost yesterday on the way to the finish on the Mont des Alouettes? There he hits the line. Clock stops on the 5th man. 25 minutes, 16 seconds. That is certainly the time to beat. Well, Paul, 25.16 for 23 kilometers. That is incredible.
It's a phenomenal performance, but they had to take that risk. They had to go out very quickly. They didn't have anything to work themselves out on. They had no other teams in front of them, no time checks to gauge themselves, so they had to go full bore around this 23-kilometer course, and that's around about 13 miles.
Well, if you look at Vacansoleil here, the team from Spain, Euskaltel, has gone through 38 seconds slower at the 16-kilometer, 10-mile checkpoint at Saxo Bank. So they're not doing a bad ride in Pro Rata. We're understanding that the team isn't a great team time trial squad, comparing that with Saxo Bank. Just waiting now to see the arrival of Euskaltel. Here we are. They're back into the streets of Les Essarts through the twists and turns of this beautiful little town. 25 minutes and 16 when that goes by. That was the time set by Saxo Bank.
We also noticed that they're also down to just 6 riders. They've left a few men out on the course. If you're wondering what those little boxes are on their back, well, those are the radio transmitters, and the team managers are able to give them up-to-date information of what the race is going to be like, and also to warn them of any dangerous corners that might be upcoming. And this part of the course here we're coming into town is rather sketchy.
It certainly is. They were 38 seconds behind Saxo at the 16-kilometer, 10-mile check. So approximately 5 miles further down the road, or 8 kilometers. We'll see just how much more time they've lost, because they will continue to lose time. That was a scorching ride, first out of the house by Saxo Bank for sure. They had to do it, and maybe Alberto Contador will get a little bit of the time he lost yesterday in that crash on the approach to the finishing line. Remember here, it's Sammy Sanchez that they want this time for, the Olympic champion, who can also climb well. As they sprint up to the line, they've slipped a long way behind the 25-16 of Saxo Bank, because they hit the line 26 minutes and 10 seconds for Euskaltel. Thanks very much, Robbie and Mark. Now we're on the start line. Rabobank about to depart. Remember, their man for Tour Victory, their work for today, is Robert Gesink. He is number 41. He's had some good tours. He also had some bad tours. He fell off on the road to La Grande Motte a couple of years ago and broke his wrist. But he's back, and he really is a likely candidate once we go down to the mountains. So today for them is extremely important indeed. And they've got some strong men in there. And Rabobank, dare I say, is having a tremendous season this year. They've risen to #1 in the rankings. So, as the rides continue, no more news. Vacansoleil is through the first check. They're in 4th. They've moved on. They're in 3rd at the 2nd check. We'll take another break and rejoin us in the team time trial. Française des Jeux, FDJ, as it is known. Watch out for surprise there from AG2R. They're getting closer to Saxo Bank at the time checks. They're in the last 6 kilometers of the day for them. Chance to see the aerodynamic bikes here. These bikes slice through the air here, as do the aerodynamic helmets they all wear. It's all about speed, and very, very much a technical man's sport now.
It is, and the difficult thing about these time trial bikes is they are, as you say, built for speed and built for aerodynamics, and they're not very maneuverable, which is why we very often see a lot of incidents and accidents in the team time trial, because the riders are trying to go around these corners at 50, 55 kilometers an hour, 30 miles an hour, and these bikes are just not designed for that. They're designed to go fast in a straight line.
Well, we saw Jeremy Roy, number 138, if he goes past your Camelens in the breakaway all day yesterday. They don't have a candidate to win the race overall. Sandy Cassar carries the team captain's number of 131. He's looking for stage wins. He's had a couple in his career, and there are quite a few opportunists in this team. So they'll just want to live with the riders today. They're not going to worry over much about where they finish. That's my opinion anyway.
Well, it's all tricky over the first couple of kilometers as they make their way out of the small town of Les Essarts, and it's also pretty tricky on the way back in. But once they're out on the open road, this is a very good testing team time trial route. The riders can use the power of the team to keep themselves. But you see how precarious they are going around those corners. That's because the machines that they're on are not very good at going around corners. But once you get them up to speed in a straight line, they are magnificent.
Yes, and just struggling to catch up with the rest of the riders at the moment is the first time in the race, Arnaud Janson. So he's one of 3 first-timers in the Tour for Française des Jeux. The other is Arthur Vichot and Gianni Meersman of Belgium. But they look as though they get themselves organised. This is Rabobank too. We expect to see a good time from Rabobank. They're the next team due. They're the next team due now at the 9-kilometer checkpoint here.
Well, this is a well-drilled squad, one of the squads that have spent a lot of time and money to practice this discipline throughout the year, because they realise, as many of the team managers said, I talked to them about how important today was. They said this is not the most important day of the Tour de France. Well, this is probably the most important day of the whole year for some of these riders.
Absolutely right. The rider in the different colours, by the way, is the new champion of Spain. That was the jersey of Alberto Contador, but not this year now, because it's Luis Leon Sanchez, the Spanish rider, on this Dutch team. Now we expect this time to be good, and the time we're looking at of Saxo Bank is 9:13. They're in target here. Now this will be a bit of a shock if they get over the time, but you know they're going to be very, very close to Saxo Bank, which looked absolutely superb. But these are Dutch cyclists basically where the wind blows forever, the roads are flat, and they love this sort of a bike race. It is going to be close.
It's very close, and they have gone inside almost 3 seconds faster than the team of Saxo Bank. So Saxo Bank now getting pushed down into second position. But Phil, as you've said, it's the next part of the course where is the indication of how well a team is going to ride.
These four teams are all that's come in at the moment. Saxo Bank with Alberto Contador in with the best time. They were first team out, 25:16. AG2R at 25 seconds, Vacansoleil at 47, and Euskaltel Euskadi there at 54 seconds. We're rejoined out on the highway now. This is Française des Jeux, and they've actually gone through the first check in third best time of 9 minutes and 21 seconds. Catching up now with the Liquigas Cannondale squad out here on the road. They're the team in support of Ivan Basso. I'm not sure, there he is, number 91. We're a little bit unsure of just what his form is, Paul. He had a bit of a... He left out his major tour, the Giro d'Italia this year. Then he crashed in training in the mountains for this Tour de France. And I'm not sure he knows himself just how well he's going to go yet.
Well, he started off the year with a pretty good victory in the Grand Prix of Lugano, but everything seemed to go wrong after that, and he pulled himself up to try and concentrate on the Tour de France. And he keeps talking a positive game, but in fact he had a very nasty training crash partway through the year, which really disturbed his preparation for the middle part of the season. I have to say he was not looking all that comfortable when he recently rode the Critérium du Dauphiné.
Paul, at the moment, Rabobank, and we didn't see them, we've gone through the 16-kilometre check with the best time, but really close to Saxo. They are still 3 seconds apart. They were 3 seconds quicker than Saxo at the first check, 3 at the second, and this is now the arrival of the Sojasan team.
Yes, Sojasan, they're coming up to the finish line. They're not going to challenge the top end of the leaderboard. The time to beat on the finishing line is still Saxo Bank, but I think that is a time that's starting to crumble a fraction. 25:16 is the time to beat. This team, which is one of the wildcard teams selected for the Tour de France, I think will be pretty pleased with their performance.
So they hit the line now, and the clock is stopped at 25:50, a third best time for this French wildcard team, and you can't complain at that. That is a very, very good ride for them. 25 minutes and 50 seconds. And so they are in, and the best time out on course with the finish line just ahead now is Rabobank. He will catch up with them now. They're 5 kilometres out. That's 3 miles still to race. And they're 3 seconds. They've been locked at 3 seconds quicker than Saxo. Back to the start line now as we watch here the 9th team to go. This is the Garmin Cervelo team. They've left 2 very good long-term prospects off this team, helpers on the squad, to pick the squad that can ride a great team time trial as well as defend for a likely win in this race. And so now we'll see if the gamble has paid off. Wearing number 51 there in the polka dot jersey is the world champion Thor Hushovd. He didn't win yesterday, but he was third, and he gets the jersey, which is owned at the moment by the winner of yesterday, Philippe Gilbert. But he will ride in yellow. Last team to go. Now, big moments this ball.
Phil, I really have a gut feeling that this team, Garmin Cervelo, have brought their team, the mixture of this team, to the Tour de France this year with one thought in mind, and that was to actually win this particular stage. That's why the composition of the team is such as it is.
Well, it will affect the overall, of course, the time today, but it's always on the 5th man. This is a team time trial, so you've got to always look where that 5th man is. There's no good leaving him behind. Now they quickly get into a very, very good rhythm here. They've got to. There's some surprises already out on course.
The experienced Julian Dean was the man leading away Garmin Cervelo here, and he's the man who knows exactly how to ride the Tour de France. He's ridden many, many times before. They've got the powerhouse, the incredible individual time trialist, Dave Zabriskie.
Well, Tommy Danielson gets in his first tour here. He's a strong man. Christian van der Velde is also the man I think we expect for the leader. David Miller also riding very, very well, the Scot. And if we get into the situation of winning today, Thor Hushovd, the world champion, will pull on the next Maillot Jaune, because he only needs to beat the Omega Pharma Lotto team by 6 seconds to claim yellow tonight. They'll ride with all of this in mind. Of course they will.
I tell you what, Phil, this is the first chance we've had a real chance to study their new jersey. Their jersey's been pretty much predominantly black and white leading up to the start of this year's Tour de France. They decided to change and go back to the old Argyle because, of course, everybody's fearing the Argyle attack.
Absolutely, and I think it's much nicer. Meanwhile, Rabobank burning up the road. Are they holding on to that 3-second advantage they've had now for 19 kilometres? Les Essarts, the town board says. We're now into the tricky section here where you go into the narrow streets and a real test for a team time trial. At the speed these guys are riding, because we are looking now at around about 50 to 54 kilometres an hour.
You might not have noticed, but the body of Robert Hessing just at the back there was really struggling to stay in contact with these guys. He's number 41 there. He's much more at home on the big mountain passes of the Pyrenees and the Alps, but he, as the leader of the squad, has to stay in contact with this group because he wants to gain as much time as possible against all of the other rivals that he's got for the overall victory at the Tour de France, which is still 4 Sundays away. In numbers, when everybody starts to get tired, you can take shorter turns. You can look over to your mate to ride a little bit longer on the front end of the main field. This is going to be a brand new best time.
This is a huge boost for Robert Hessing for sure now, because he's gaining more time over Alberto Contador, because they're going to beat Contador's team. That team was 25 minutes and 16 seconds. Look at this. They have really whooped it over this last few kilometres of the race, and they know it, the way the sprinters are packed. They hit the line. The fifth man stops it. 25 minutes dead. So they've gained 16 seconds for guessing over Alberto Contador. And you know, every second counts.
It certainly does. Look at the faces of those riders, and that you can interpret into the pain that they have gone through to put out this incredible time. 25 minutes it's taken them out on the course this afternoon, but still, Phil, we've got the big teams left out on the road.
Back now with Française des Jeux here. Rabobank, I think, have set a very high mark. Well, it's just gone up. The bar has gone up to 9:03 now. Garmin Cervelo will know what they're doing. The heads are turning. Don't slow down now.
Well, the thing to remember, Phil, is if wake up the winning team here, Team Garmin Cervelo, at the end of the day, Thor Hushovd, the man on the front there in that polka dot jersey, will endoss the overall leader's jersey. But this is a bit of a problem here, because Julian Dean, the man who started the action, led them out of Les Essarts. He's just popped.
Well, he's going to have to be left. He's a sprint lead-out man. He's not a man that will be required. All he's got to do is get home inside the time limit, which will be based on the time of the team today. It's 30% slower, and you're out of the Tour de France. So he can't sit up and look at the countryside. He's got to keep on going for the next 14 kilometres on his own. They won't wait for him now, because they know they're setting the best time.
No, they certainly won't. Sitting on the back, number 59, that's a man they'll count on an awful lot down towards the end. Dave Zabriskie. Zabriskie, the time trial champion of the United States.
I wonder if we can hear into Team Garmin's car and what they've got to say about that. There's only the 1 kilometre to go here for Française des Jeux. They're just trying to regain contact with Garmin Cervelo. Here we are with a Europe car now. They've not reached the first check yet. We've had 9 teams through that first check, and Team Garmin Cervelo has set the new mark of 9 minutes 3 seconds. We're looking at Team Quick-Step now, the 11th team to get underway here. Well, Christophe Kern still showing us his new colours as champion of France on the front here.
Well, they've gone outside of the best time, which was set by Team Garmin Cervelo at this point, but it's not a shabby ride here by Team Europcar. Obviously motivated, Phil, by the fact that they're pretty much racing on home turf.
Yes, they've got to give off their best performance here. This is their chance to show their public here in this sector of France, and they've gone through there with the 6th best time of 9:24. That's 6 of 10 teams to pass through that point. That's not bad.
Just looking.
We've seen Quickstep. This must be Movistar on the start line now, and there they are. They have a lot of motivation, Movistar, because the man who should have been on this team, Xavier Tondo, tragically and unbelievable, was going training, and he went to get his bike out of the garage while his teammate waited for him. The garage door fell on his head, and as a result he was killed. And now in the Tour de Suisse, Juan Mauricio Soler had an incredible crash and is still very, very seriously ill. It's really an incredibly sad tale for a brand new team.
He still is in an induced coma at the moment. The doctors actually said, Phil, that his injuries were about the same as falling out of a 4th-floor apartment building. It was that bad.
He bounced off traffic furniture in the Tour de Suisse and then ricocheted off a spectator. Amongst his injuries were 8 broken ribs. Originally it was 4 that was reported. A fractured skull, a broken ankle, a punctured lung, a lacerated liver. It sounds absolutely horrendous. Anyway, this team's got to pull all that behind them now and get on with the job in hand. They've lost 2 of the strongest men from this team before the Tour even got underway, and that will win a lot of sympathy from the public as we move around France.
Well, they do, however, let's not forget, have the Spanish national champion in their midst, and I have to say that Jose Joaquim Rojas finished 4th on the stage yesterday, so if this team puts in a sterling performance and they win the team time trial, he could be the new wearer of the yellow jersey at the end of the day.
Well, with or without the strong men we've mentioned, it's unlikely this team is going to challenge the likes of Garmin-Cervelo today. Garmin-Cervelo, and remember that behind that we've got the Sky team. We rate them very, very much. HTC High Road are hot today. Leopard Trek hot today. Who knows what Amiga with Philippe Gilbert in yellow can do, or the team of Cadel Evans, the American BMC squad.
Well, I'm having a quick look here, Phil, and a quick head count is showing that there are only 6 riders now left in this Garmin-Cervelo squad, so they now have decided they're going to leave anybody behind who's dropped off the back end of the pace. Now, that could go against them in this latter part of the course, because Rabobank finished with all 9 riders, but they're 13 seconds ahead at the second time check, and they're going extremely fast. And the men they've got left are the nucleus of Garmin-Cervelo, the strong men at 2 kilometers to go.
And that's what's will be yellow for Thor Hushovd, and Garmin will be on top of the world, and that's why the world champion drives this team time trial to its finish now. He must know this is going to be one heck of a time as they come up towards the line. Now the time to be 25 minutes dead. They have annihilated 24 minutes and 48 seconds. The clock has stopped.
Well, you could just see the power of Thor Hushovd over those last 500 meters. He in fact had to slow down and wait for the rest of the guys because it's the time of the 5th man which is the most important. Good to see Van der Velde in there, good to see Tommy Danielson in there too. That now has set the bar extremely high.
Well, I wonder if anybody can match that, but we know there are at least 3 teams in the race who can match that sort of quality of ride. So, as they always say, time will tell. It's a good time too at the moment. It won't be too shabby. It should be they should just about get in here in the top 7 times that have been recorded at the moment as they sprint towards it, constantly looking for the position of the 5th man. Christophe Kern is the new champion of France in the tricolour-coloured jersey there in the middle, and as they come up towards the line, what are they going to get? They hit the line, 5th man comes in, Paul. Well, they did, you see, they came in 5th place there, 25:38. So we've got the big teams that could challenge the time of Garmin-Cervelo. So 9 for Team Astana as they drop into 2nd place behind Garmin-Cervelo and push Contador's team a little bit further down there. And very shortly now it will be Team Sky to take to the road, and there's a lot of people think that Bradley Wiggins can pull this team round to a terrific time today.
Well, there's a casualty now on board the Astana Express because the number 62, Remy de Gregorio, he's one of the climbers on this team. He can't take this pace. That pace, if you notice the average speed, Phil, after 9 kilometers was 58.5 kilometers an hour. This is an incredible start to the team time trial.
Well, I have to say, De Gregorio can climb hills, but the rest of the team, and him included now, are being blown away. This is Zates here, who has also been dispatched.
Yeah, he's the 2nd rider to go off the back of the Astana Express here. suppose we could call it the Astana Express, because one of their team sponsors is the Kazakhstan National Railway System.
But the rest of the boys are getting on with the job in hand here. That's what they've got to do. The weak riders have done the work as best they can. They're left behind. They've got to get in and beat the time limit, which their own team will set. You can't be eliminated today if you're 30% behind your team's time.
Yep, that's the important thing. Now, quick step down to 6 riders. I make the elimination time, Phil, not very much more than about 7 minutes this afternoon, and it's so easy to lose 7 minutes, especially when you're riding on your own out in the open roads and trying to rival the speeds that's being done by these teams in the team time trial.
Well, as Quick Step come home here, it's going to be about the 5th or the 6th best time as they come in towards the finishing line, unless they've lost more out on this last run. I don't think we really expected them to challenge the fleetness of Garmin Cervelo, but watch out when Team Sky get underway, because that will worry Garmin, and for sure they're down to 6 riders, despite the fact that the time is not going to be outstanding. They're already past the 3rd place on the board and slipping away. If they get around about 25-35, then they'll be dropping in around 5th place, and that's about where they will come as they ride up towards the finishing straight here. Just again, a little check of the heads. Where is that 5th man? He's got the responsibility of stopping the clock. The crowd cheer them home here, and it's gone through. So they're about 5th as they come up towards the line. It might even be 6th here. I think they've slowed down as they've gone out on the road. So Team Quick Step come in, and in fact at the end 25-44, only 7th at the moment. To the face of Bradley Wiggins, who is the British time trial champion and as of last week the British road race champion. So he still wears his national colours in the time trial as well. Geraint Thomas to our right here in the white jersey as best newcomer. If they get the best time today, that white one will be yellow tonight. The pressure is on.
Well, Bradley Wiggins doesn't have to change his jersey, as you said, Phil. He's a double national time trial champion in the road race and in the time trial, but he's a very well-established rider on the track. 3 Olympic gold medals. But what about Geraint Thomas, the Welsh rider? He today will be looking at a little piece of history if he can grab himself the yellow jersey. And Boasson Hagen too, next to Bradley Wiggins there in the red and blue jersey, champion of Norway in the individual time trial.
And suffering from shingles, apparently, which is an incredibly painful disease. So apparently he's well enough to start the Tour de France. Let's see how he goes, but he's strong. Cheers away for Team Sky then. Now, if any team can challenge the time of Garmin Cervelo, this is it. And Bradley Wiggins goes down there. Geraint Thomas leads off now. The boys in green instead of black and blue this time are underway. So let's just see now. They'll settle in quickly, and they are experts at this type of racing. These are the big danger for me for the Garmin Cervelo's time today. Quickly into an excellent all in a straight line here. No risk taken on the start. Geraint Thomas still leads them around at the top bend there. Still no
Astana.
Well, our cameras, of course, and our producers work overtime now to whip around the course to bring us the images as they hit the spot. This is Astana, but they're losing ground as well as men here. They were, in fact, 6 seconds behind Garmin Cervelo. They are now 19 seconds behind Team Sky. Now everybody is on the edge of their seats to see what Team Sky can do at the first check of the day. Look at those speeds, 70 kilometers an hour at the moment, and that is this team in front of us, Sky. So as we look at Team Sky now, 70 kilometers an hour is about 44 miles an hour.
Team Pro Cycling here are trying to do what they can. They're pushing it along at an extremely high pace, and they're still looking fairly organized. You see how they're in a nice straight line. The rider at the front swings off, having done his turn. Freewheels a fraction. Boasson Hagen in the red jersey, he's just got back onto the tail of that line. He will start to recuperate, knowing that in around about 2 to 3 minutes time it's his turn to go to the front of that line one more time and set the pace. Another rider switching back.
Well, this is the Lamprey team as we move back to the start. They've just been given 30 seconds to the go. Well, there's no way these boys are going to live with Team Sky, believe me, because Sky are riding now extremely quickly. Damiano Cunego is their leader. He said he's going to lie low until he gets to the mountains and then see just how well he can climb them. He is a potential threat. He's worn the white jersey in the Tour de France in his early days as well. And he's just finished second in the Tour of Switzerland. They get the countdown now, but what we want to know is the time of Team Sky at that first check, and it is going to be a very, very quick time.
No, certainly when you're pushing speeds of 40 miles an hour in a team time trial like this, you're going to challenge the top end of the leaderboard. But Team Garmin-Cervelo went through that first time check till at around about 41 miles an hour average speed. Back then with Team Sky, it's Bradley Wiggins going to the front. And again, just to make the important note that this is not about an individual. This is about getting the best cohesive performance out of the whole team. And a lot of people regard this as a measure of the strength and depth of a team, because here on this day, you are only as strong as the weakest man in your squad.
Yes, and right at the back here is Geraint Thomas, the Welshman here, who could be in yellow tonight if Team Sky produce the best time of the day. And that would be a dream come true. Bradley Wiggins, who's had a fourth in the Tour de France before in the time trial champions colours, all white there, with the British red, white and blue around his chest. And now as we get 15 kilometres out from the finish, we're not far from that check.
I reckon
One bend is the next bend they've got to go around. It is going to be desperately close as they break hard for the corner. We're talking 1 or 2 seconds, and it's going to be... Oh, it'll be rounded up. It is 1 second quicker at the moment for Team Sky.
That's Juan Antonio Fletcher from Spain on the front end of the main field. Look at that average speed, 59.7 kilometers an hour. That's 37.5 miles an hour after just 5 miles of the race. They are cohesively joined, these riders. They're working exceptionally well. So the provisional stage at the moment after 9 kilometers is Sky by 1 second from Garmin-Cervelo, and Saxo Bank losing themselves at this point 11 seconds.
Well, that is... Now, where are we? Down at the start line now for Radio Shack here on the start line. They've got I think they've got 4 contenders at this stage of the Tour for overall contenders. Leipheimer, Kloden, Horner and Brakovic. Those 4 guys could go all the way today to Paris as a possible winner. They've got to decide which one they will defend for, but there's no decision yet.
Well, as we look at these riders, the best placed rider in Team Radio Shack is Andreas Kloden. He's in great form currently, and if this team was to win the team time trial, as they did in the shape of Team Astana a number of years ago, then it would be Andreas Kloden who would get himself the yellow jersey.
And that's what will be in their minds right now as Radio Shack get underway here. They won the Tour of Switzerland with Levi Leipheimer. They won the Amgen Tour of California with Chris Horner. They've had a tremendous season already. And now they're in the time trial in the Tour de France, and they're aiming for the yellow jersey once more.
Well, they've been no strangers to victory in the various forms, whether it's US Postal Service, Discovery Channel or Team Astana of victories in the team time trial over the years. The rider in the slightly different coloured jersey there, by the way, is Jani Brakovic. One of the leaders of the team is the Slovenian national time trial champion.
Breton flag flies. Will be in Brittany very shortly, but right now we're in the Vendée area of France, this diverse country here where they love the Tour de France despite all that's been thrown at it over the years by the public, by the riders and by the media. Team Radio Shack are now underway here, and they will love to get Chris Horner if they could. But Kloden would be their man who will move into yellow if they were to win this team time trial today. He was right up in that finishing climb yesterday outside of Les Herbiers.
Yes, he finished in 7th place on the stage yesterday, and that was a pretty important performance for him. Chris Horner is in 9th place, and Levi Leipheimer a little bit further back. Levi Leipheimer, in fact, was involved in an incident at 2 kilometers to go, but given the same time as the group that he was with.
We'll take a note of this time checks at the moment. 24:48 is Garmin-Cervelo. Rabobank at 12 seconds. We reckon within 2 minutes, Team Sky will be into that finishing line if they're going to take the overall lead. As we watch the departure here of Radio Shack, the next team to finish will be Team Sky. 24:48. If they beat Garmin, then Geraint Thomas is sitting in the possibility of wearing yellow tonight. But they've got to beat Garmin to leave that still a possibility.
Bradley Wiggins leading him into the final 100 meters here. Bosenhagen in 2nd place. They're still very tight together, with Geraint Thomas just hanging on to the back of that line to be man number 5. Is going to be desperately close. It's 24:48 is the time to beat, and they know that. They will see the clock above the gantry finish line.
It is very, very, very close. The 5th time now. 24:48 is the time. time. I think they might do this. It is going to be desperately close as they hit the line. They've just passed by. They've stopped the clock at 24:52. Second place for Team Sky. Well, it is in an incredible time. I know they won't be happy with that because they are 4 seconds. They did that third sector in exactly the same time as Garmin-Cervelo. 4 seconds stays the margin. 24:52 for Team Sky. Second for them.
Back with Radio Shack, but as I've said, Phil, on a number of occasions, the finisher having more riders together in the last 10 kilometers makes it extremely important. That's where this race is being won and lost, as we can see that. We can see now
to the finish now to see this American team for San Luis Obispo in California. HTC High Road. There is Mark Cavendish. Also on the team is Bernard Eisel, Lars Bak, Matt Goss riding his first race, the Australian who won Milan San Remo, Tony Martin, who can do a bit of time trialing rather well. And what about Mark Renshaw and Peter Velits? This is a good team and it could win today.
Matty Goss just coming into the picture there. He may well be the man to lead them away here. 24 years of age. It's an experienced squad. They know the time to beat and they want to beat it. There's a massive rivalry in the team time trial.
They're underway. Now it's their pressure. They know what's got to be done because Garmin-Cervelo is back home in the shower with the best time of the day, 24:48. And if you want the 100th, 0.1. And that's their official time in detail. Of course, in cycling, it's rounded to the nearest whole second. It's only in dead heats will they look at those tenths of a second. So they are now making their way out of town. They're actually leaving the finishing line because it's on their backs about 500 meters away. They go round in a huge circle. They go on the outskirts of La Roche-sur-Yon, which is, oh my goodness me, they went too wide on the corner and that was amazing, but they lost it straight away. And the rider who is on the floor here is Bernie Eisel, probably the most experienced of the lot. Now Eisel will probably not get back on here. He was dropped from the team, in fact, 2 years ago early on.
Well, I was just looking to see what happened there, and he's just, in fact, I think he might have just touched the wheel of the rider in front of him. This is a corner, probably the only dangerous corner on the course, and it's the nervousness of these riders going round that corner that has damned Bernie Eisel, probably to have to ride this 23-kilometer race on his own. I'm not sure they'll wait for him.
Well, I don't think they can possibly afford to wait for him, but if he finishes outside that 30%, he's got to ride the whole race alone now. He would be eliminated from the Tour de France. That is absolutely a sporting tragedy there for Bernard Eisel. It really is total misjudgment, touch of the wheel in front, and he sat on the road. Well, it all happens in team time trials, doesn't it? Andy Schleck and his team are still to start, but take a look at this team now. They're getting into the rhythm. Radio Shack could be the next challenge to the time of Garmin-Cervelo at the finishing line. So as we continue now, this is the Cavendish squad. They're not going to affect the overall standings right now. It's become a battle of the big teams in the Tour de France. Garmin-Cervelo are in. Sky has come in just 4 seconds behind them. Rabobank is there at 12 seconds. So we're looking at the World Time Trial champion now, Fabian Cancellara. This is Leopard Trek. They are the third from last team to go out of the start house today. The man in the middle looking towards us is Andy Schleck.
30 seconds.
Tense moments for this team. It's a new team. Half the team walking out on the Saxo Bank squad last year, forming their own team out of Luxembourg around the Schleck brothers. Cancellara joined them off the same Saxo Bank team. Now, yesterday, Paul, this man nearly stole the show with that late attack up the hill, didn't he?
He has got great form, Fabian Cancellara. He won the final time trial of the Tour of Switzerland just recently, and he did almost win the stage yesterday, and he's the best placed rider in his squad coming up to the line.
So the last team in was Lampre, and we now have behind only 2 teams left to start here. Cadel Evans, the Australian runner-up in 2 tours. He rides the American BMC team, and he got second yesterday. Best of all of the favourites. He's made a perfect start to the Tour de France.
Well, he's the man who's leading them off. He is one of the most experienced riders in the world at the individual time trial. He's won the World Time Trial Championships on 4 separate occasions, but he's also not too bad when it comes to steering a team in the team time trial, and he was the most important part of his team, Team Saxo Bank, at the time in 2009 when they almost beat Team Discovery Channel.
Well, Leopard Trek here. Don't forget the Leopard Trek. Yes, it's all built around a possible potential win for Andy Schleck. He's been second the last 2 years, don't forget. But because of the result yesterday, they would have to defend the lead. If they were to win today, they'd have to defend the lead on the shoulders of Linus Gerdemann, the German, because he was best placed in the finish yesterday. But he probably would not worry too much about that. He'd be proud to wear yellow. He's done it once before.
He certainly has. Number 171 at the back of the group. That is Mark Cavendish. I'm just looking to see whether they did sit up and wait at all for Bernie Eisel. I don't think with the fast start that they will have made, they have done that. But Cavendish, I asked him just before the start of the Tour de France, Phil, how he felt about the team time trial and how it was for a sprinter who normally is not very good at this discipline. He said, mate, I come from a track background. I used to ride the team pursuit. I know how to suffer just with the best of them.
And I'm sure he's going to suffer today for sure. Well, I rather hope you're right. They can't possibly afford to wait for Bernie Eisel. And he would have been a strong man for a little while in the time trial, although he's blown away pretty early on 2 years ago when we had a time trial. Oh, but it's not a good thing to lose somebody like Bernie Eisel, and he's a very, very popular member of the squad. He'd be embarrassed by that too, sitting on the floor by touching a wheel in front after that sharp left-hander. But here we go. Let's see how it's reflected on the first check. You see they're right up there, aren't they, as they get around that corner. They've gone around in fourth place. No, in fact, sixth place. Not the best of starts now. It's affected them. 9-11.
Well, they've lost themselves almost 9 seconds. They've taken a fairly moderate start, and they will be handicapped by missing a man.
Teams to go. This is the BMC team. In the green jersey is Cadel Evans of Australia. Brent Buckwalter here in his second Tour de France is a big support now from America. Berghardt, George Hincapie, the most experienced. And this is a top team. But they have got to ride to the best of their ability. They're going to put Cadel Evans in yellow tonight.
5, 4, 3,
Tense moments.
2, 1, top.
Now, it was a perfect day for Cadel yesterday. Well, if you speak to him, it wasn't a perfect day because he wanted to win the stage and be the first yellow jersey. But the fact he finished second was a terrific result. He gained a march over all of the Tour favourites and a huge march over Alberto Contador of 1 minute and 17 seconds. So today, Paul, if this team can pull it off, and George Hincapie is the man to help them, if they can pull it off, then we're going to be in yellow tonight. Now, at the finishing line, Garmin Sabello sit there with best time, 24:48. Sky is in second, Rabobank is in third, and Saxo Bank of Alberto Contador is in fourth. Now, what do you think BMC can do, Paul? We don't see that they could either do a great ride or a disastrous ride, couldn't they?
Well, I think they'll do a good ride because one of the management members of Team BMC Racing is Jim Okovits, and through his association with 7-Eleven, and let's not forget 7-Eleven 25 years ago participated in the Tour de France, the first American team to do so. Okovits then brought on board Team Motorola, and then he was always very, very keen on the team time trial, spent a lot of time preparing for it. And I know BMC, of course, they're a bicycle manufacturer, but they've spent a lot of time and money into research and development of good time trial bikes, and putting that together with the aerodynamics of putting the riders into the wind tunnel during the winter months. I think they'll do a solid ride here this afternoon. They're completely motivated.
Well, Cadel Evans, I know the Aussies will be cheering Cadel Evans because he got a good start yesterday with that second place, putting best of all of the favourites for the next 3 weeks. And he is the man now at 34 years of age. He's had 2 second places in the Tour de France, lost only by seconds. So he knows what a massive gain he made yesterday of well over 1 minute on Contador. Because seconds count. Now, this is the interesting one. The arrival of Team Leopard Trek here. It's going to be a good ride as well, too. They've a little way to go now. They won't be better than the Sky team, but they're right up there, and they're being led by the big man Spartacus himself. As they lock up for the corner, the clock will stop. It is going to drop in nicely into... Fair place, it should be. It's at the same time. They've gone through exactly the same time as Team Astana. So 9:09 for Leopard Trek.
But I think more importantly, Phil, they've still got all 9 riders present and correct in this group. And in third place there, the grimace on the face of Jens Voigt, followed by Stuart O'Grady. The men who will have the hardest ride in this group this afternoon will be the men who are not good at the time trial. That'll be Frank Schleck and Andy.
Well, at the time check now, with 2 teams to come, by the way, Sky Pro Cycling were best here, followed by Garmin Cervelo 1 second, and Leopard Trek are now third at 7, equal with Team Astana. Astana did slow down. Will Leopard Trek accelerate here? Sky also slowed down, but only by 3 seconds. We're only going to talk seconds again tomorrow. This is a good result for Levi Leipheimer and Chris Horner as Team Radio Shack sprint up to the line here. Time taken on the fifth man, 24:58. That's a brilliant third place, so they'll be happy with that.
Well, it's a well-balanced ride, Phil, because at the first time check, they were down by 9 seconds. They were 15 seconds down at this next time check, and they, in fact, improved over the last part of the course.
And Team High Road, we didn't see them, but they've gone through now the second check, and they're still holding on to 4th place, 14 seconds only off the time of Garmin Cervelo.
And bear in mind that that's exactly what Radio Shack did. They took a moderate start, accelerated in the middle part of the course, and then went extremely fast in the last part of the course. HTC High Road was 6th. They've climbed up to 5th, but they're only talking about 15 seconds. But Leopard Trek are now about to be a man down. They've lost the Dutchman, Joost Postuma.
Yes, he's gone now, and that was the first sign, because the speed that Spartacus was setting, he's the big man here in the white as world champion. He holds the record for world champion. He's also the reigning Olympic champion. And Fabian Cancellara here just loves to get to grips against the watch, and he's usually the man that beats the battle there. So as the British flag flies on the right of the road there, the British team Sky sit 4 seconds off the lead in second place at the finishing line. This team is going to run them pretty close. So as they continue to make their way, the crowd seems to be getting bigger and bigger here as these riders go through. They've waited to see these big names in the sport of cycling. This is a brand new team, but all of the names are well known to these people.
No, they certainly are. They're a man down, but that may not matter, because when you ride something like the team time trial, I have to say Fabian Cancellara is worth 3 men.
Well, here we go, the last of 22 teams. We've had a great day so far. Philippe Gilbert is having a great season. He now has 14 wins to his credit. He starts for the first time in his life as the leader of the Tour de France. Now his team is going to have to produce something pretty very special if he's going to keep yellow tonight. I don't think they can, but sometimes you're inspired, Paul. At the moment, Garmin Cervelo sit best team at the finish. Logically, their man Thor Hushovd will be the leader tonight, but this race is not over yet, and there are still 4 teams to come home. They're away. Omega Pharma Lotto now, the faithful teammates of Philippe Gilbert. They know what they have to do.
Well, they certainly do, Phil, and I have to say, I don't mean this in any derogatory manner at all, but this has never been one of the top teams when it comes to the team time trial. But you've always said when you've got the yellow jersey on your shoulders, or when you've got the yellow jersey in the team, it can inspire the team to do much better performances. And Philippe Gilbert, he probably feels that he's got a big chance of losing the jersey this afternoon, but he may well inspire the riders to push themselves above and beyond the call of duty.
Now quickly into rhythm. This is going to be forever known as the Eisel corner here. That's where he fell off, Bernie Eisel from the HTC. It is a hard corner, that I have to say. They all rocked and rolled a little bit and quickly got themselves back into sprinting formation. Jürgen Rollens is the rider sat here at the back.
He's a rider who had a very nasty crash just the other day alongside his own teammate Jürgen van der Walle. And a lot of crashes in the opening day, and those crashes have actually had a fairly serious effect on the look of the overall standings, especially when you start to talk about Alberto Contador, who got stuck behind, and I have to say, a traffic jam at around about 6 miles to go to the finish of yesterday's stage, and lost himself at the end of the day 1 minute and 20 seconds on Philippe Gilbert.
Yes, and right now he sits 28 seconds further behind Team Garmin Cervelo with his team time today, because Saxo Bank are only in 5th place. 28 seconds covers the first 5 teams to finish. He's going to slip further away, I think, once Team HTC High Road comes in, because I think they're steadily going quicker and quicker. They've gone through in 4th place at the second check, and they're now running down towards the finish. They are the next team to reach the finishing line. Go back to Radio Shack here. The green jersey of points, BMC, the green jersey of points being worn by Cadel Evans.
Well, this is not a bad ride by Cadel Evans' team, because they will probably not rival the time of Team Sky Pro Cycling, but they'll be very close to the top end of the leaderboard as they go around this corner. They're going to stop it inside, pretty much inside. Well, that's an incredible time. Third.
That is a super time at 9:04 there for Team BMC. That is a great ride. Somebody's inspiring them back there, because it was 9:03 for Garmin Cervelo and 9:02 for the Sky Pro Cycling team. And as we've seen, things change over the next kilometres, or next 15 kilometres or so. That's a great start.
Swinging off the front, number 144. Great quick glimpse there was George Hincapie riding his 16th Tour de France, but it's now HTC High Road. They went through the first time check, Phil, in 7th place. They climbed up to 4th place. Now, what are they going to be on the finishing line?
Because they've gone steadily better and better, and let's hope Bernie Eisel, who's riding a lone trail behind this team, doesn't drop behind by more than 30% of whatever time they do. Otherwise, he'll be heading home tonight, back into his nation of Austria. Tour done. These are the boys coming home now. They carry Matt Goss of Australia. They carry Mark Cavendish, the sprinter. And they carry riders who want to look even further than that, like the newcomer, TJ Van Garderen from Montana, the rider who has visions in the next couple of years of winning the Tour de France. It's the first tryout for him now. This is a pretty good time. They've definitely gone quicker and quicker here. Now, the third time finish is that of Radio Shack of 24:58. Are they going to make the top 3 at the moment? Just take a look at those faces. These boys are firing on all cylinders now. Every second really counts in this short team time trial today. You can probably hear the speaker of the man on the P, Daniel Manjas, calling them home now. It is going to be desperately close for 3rd place as they go. Oh, they've just gone through. It'll be 4th best at 24:50. 3rd, they've got it. No, they've got it. So they've slotted in. They get quicker and quicker. 24 minutes 53 for HTC High Road. Fabian Cancellara, we expected this, has upped the engine and is going to drag them up the finishing straight here, firing on 4 cylinders. This man was so good, they once accused him of having a motor on his bike. He says, no, but I've got motors in both legs, and he uses them on a daily basis in the time trial. He will drive it on. The best time is 24:48. That time has gone by, but it's a great finish. It is an incredible finish. They've held 3rd, 24:53 for Leopard Trek.
That is an unbelievable performance, and I tell you what, Phil, they owe a big debt of gratitude to the man in the white jersey, world champion in the individual time trial, Fabian Cancellara. But what a great job of work for Andy Schleck.
Well, they've beaten HTC by 0.6 of a second. That's all. So that sprint was necessary to take them into the top 3. Now, all gaining time, of course, over Alberto Contador as we go back to Cadel Evans. This is the crucial time check for Cadel Evans now, as Team BMC went through the first check in 3rd place, but only 2 seconds behind Sky and 1 second behind Team Garmin Cervelo, who are still the best team at the finish. Now, if Cadel Evans can hold that sort of a gap, he will be in yellow tonight. It's an incredible result. It really has been a gripping team time trial.
I have to say one thing, you've got to rue the fall of Bernie Eisel. HTC High Road for 5 seconds. They were 1 man down. If Bernie Eisel hadn't fallen in one of those first corners, what a different story we might have been talking this afternoon.
Absolutely so. Now, BMC have come up on the board of the second check, 6 seconds behind Garmin Cervelo now. 6 seconds. That will give Thor Hushoff the lead. Oh, this is unbelievable at the moment, and now the Omega Pharma Lotto boys have got 2 teammates struggling here to keep up in the same situation. Jurgen van der Volle and Jelle van Endert. Jelle van Endert, first timer in the Tour de France on the team. Van der Volle is number 37. But he is the rider who had that problem yesterday and did a headstand when we had that crash. And so he's probably feeling pretty stiff today. But the big question is, Can Cadel Evans get yellow, or will Thor Hushoff be in yellow? Seconds is the magic margin here. That's what Cadel Evans had advantage over Thor Hushoff at the start of the day. Garmin and Cervelo are beside themselves at the finishing line here as they see if that clock hits 24:51, Hushoff will be in yellow. If it's a better time than that, Evans will be in yellow. At the moment, he's got 10 seconds to get there. They can see the line, but it is such a long way up to the finishing straight here. Evans has driven this race home. The time is slipping by. Second best time for BMC in itself. A tremendous ride, but 4 seconds the difference. 1 second has swung it the way of Garmin Cervelo. Tomorrow they lead the Tour de France.
Yeah, and that will be on the shoulders of Thor Hushoff, but that is a phenomenal ride. You cannot dispute the say, Phil, by Team BMC Racing. Third at the third time check, third at the second, and pulling themselves up into second place and pushing Team Sky Pro Cycling down into third by a fraction of a second.
BMC in second place by 4 seconds, slightly better by tenths of a second over Sky Pro Cycling. You take third. Leopard Trek come in fourth, and HTC lost by 4/10 of a second or something like that. They've been pushed into fifth place. Radio Shack is in sixth. No surprise about the teams in that block, except I feel BMC, arguably they've done the ride of the day, Paul. That was a terrific ride by BMC.
No, it was phenomenal, and it's all, as I say, a lot to do with the association that Jim Ockowitz has got with the team time trial discipline. He's always appreciated it and always made sure whatever team he's been with, whether it's been the 711 squad back in the 1980s, whether it's been Motorola in the 1990s, or now BMC in the 2000s, he's always invested time, money and effort in this discipline.
Yeah, and in the longer term, looking over 3 weeks, Cadel Evans has just gained 24 seconds over Alberto Contador, and that is pretty crucial considering he lost the Tour by a similar margin, 23 seconds, a few years ago.
That now will put Alberto Contador, at a quick calculation, a good 1 minute and 40 seconds behind a lot of his big favourite rivals.
This is going to be a great tour. It's had the feeling from day one here in the Vendée. It hasn't let us down. These boys have fought for everything yesterday and today. Well, he had a brilliant day yesterday. He had his 14th win of the year. Last weekend he was winning the championship of Belgium. Last night he pulled on the maillot jaune of the Tour de France. Today he won't be wearing that jersey tomorrow, but it's been a great team time trial for a team that do not specialise in this type of event. So Philippe Gilbert is going to have to bring them all in. He's gone through with the 13th best time at the second check. He's gone through there in 17 minutes and 20 seconds. And we will see him all the way to the finish, and he's going to drop in around the top 15 just if he's lucky. And he's only got 6 riders left with him. Well, don't swapped as they came towards the end. It's all over now as the seconds tick away. Thor Hushoff has become the new leader of the Tour de France, and he rides for the American Garmin Cervelo team. The world champion has turned his season around, because since he won the world champion, he hasn't had much at all. This is the yellow jersey coming home for the last time as the last team finishes Omega Pharma Lotto. They won't even look at the time, I don't think. 10th place. They did improve, though, considerably over that last sector. 25-27 at their final time.
So the last moment in the yellow jersey for Philippe Gilbert, but for the American team Garmin Cervelo, they will be donning the yellow jersey this afternoon for the first time since the team was put together many years ago, and they'll go onto the shoulders of the Norwegian world champion, Thor Hushoff.
See another American squad in second place. The British team Sky in third. There's a changing of the guard at the top of the world of cycling for sure. Radio Shack in sixth place, Rabobank seventh, and Saxo Bank with Contador only 8th at the finish, and losing more time for last year's winner of the Tour de France. There's the top 15 for you. Well, don't go away, because we'll have everything we can grab for you, plus of course the final wrap-ups and the podiums, and we'll see a new yellow jersey as well, and that's now on the podium, and there they are. Well, I'd love to see John Lafortes now. This is what he's always dreamt of, putting a team up there, having won the team time trial of the Tour de France. Sporting the white glasses there is Dave Zabriskie. All smiles in his first tour is Tommy. This is a momentous day for these boys. And the world champion on the left is the man who will shortly be pulling on the yellow jersey for the 3rd time in his career. Tommy D just in front of us here. This team really gave it some stuff today. Thor Hushovd tried to win yesterday, so they had to work that little bit harder to convert his 3rd place finish yesterday into the lead of the overall classification tonight. Given him for that if he had, because he wins by 4 seconds, and that's all from BMC and Sky. But there's the moment now. 3rd time in his career, Thor Hushovd pulls on the maillot jaune. He last wore it when he won the prologue of the Tour de France in Strasbourg in Germany, and that gave him the first yellow jersey as winner of the Tour. He held it for 1 day. Well, I think he might be figuring on trying to lead this Tour for a little bit longer now, because tomorrow will favour the sprinters a little bit. Bit of a tough climb the next day up the Mur de Bretagne, but he proved yesterday he can get up the hills. His situation with the Michelob Ultra overall standings, he's on the same time of his teammate David Miller, who helped him yesterday get up into that position. Cadel Evans is 3rd at that 1 second we said. Geraint Thomas at 4, Linus Gerdemann at 4 on the Leopard Trek team. Brother Frank, not Andy, is 4 seconds in 6th place. Cancellara, these are all the boys who finished well up yesterday. You see being reflected now. Andy Schleck in 10th place. Bradley Wiggins in 12th place alongside George Hincapie there. Yes, today it's goodbye to the Vendée. It's over the mouth of France's longest river, the Loire, and it's into Brittany, and it's flat all the way apart from that big bridge over the Pont de Saint-Nazaire. We continue our story of sea, beautiful scenery, and again another beautiful day. The crowd here at the finish in Redon, well, they've been there for 5 hours that we know of. This is the rollout this morning as we left the start town of Aulon-sur-Mer, and the Vendée region really done us proud on the Tour de France for this opening 3 days. And the Norwegian Thor Hushovd, without doubt the greatest cyclist Norway's ever produced, on the right there.
No, certainly. Very soon after the start, the white flag, the neutral flag comes in, and it doesn't take very long for 1 or 2 riders to come leaping out of the pack. I have to say, though, again, a very warm day in France, 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, but very quickly 5 men get off the front.
And there's the names for you: Ruben Perez, Jose Ivan Gutierrez, Maxime Boyer, Niki Terpstra and Mikel Delage. The 5 men have gone out front today, as we always call them, the early morning breakaway, and they're gaining time at the moment. They're nearly 7 minutes ahead. Alberto Contador, as he fastens on his gloves here, he must be thinking, what on earth has gone wrong in the last 2 days of cycling? He's going to have to be at his very, very best when we get down to the Pyrenees next weekend. It's absolutely the best day so far. I would like to think it's the best day we've had in Europe since summer began. 79 degrees and light winds blowing. It is a fabulous day for the bike race. And don't forget, all of these stunning images are also available to you in HD. Now let's have a look at our rider update. It's not going to tell us too much today, Paul, is it? Because there's nobody giving up the Tour de France yet. All of the teams are intact. And by day 3, that isn't always the case. So we're having a very good start for all of the teams in what everybody feels is going to be a great Tour de France. These are the boys we've got on the pulse. Yeah,
we'll be checking out their heart rate and their wattage outputs later out in the course to give us an indication of just how difficult this is. Thomas Veikus of Lithuania, Christian Knies, and it's not a surprise to go to the front end of the main field and have a look at Garmin Cervelo controlling.
Yes, that's the job of the team with the race leader on it, and yesterday was one of, I think, probably the proudest moment of team manager Jonathan Vaught's career as a sporting director, when he saw his team win the team time trial and claim the maillot jaune for Thor Hushovd, of course the ex-teammate of Jonathan Vaught in his professional day as well.
In the yellow sunglasses, there is Alberto Contador. He must be asking himself questions every time he goes to bed at night. He would not expect to be 1 minute and 42 seconds behind after just 2 days of racing, but it's not impossible that this man can fight back, and he is, after all, Phil, a true champion. And I have to think that he is going to attack like a crazy man once we get down to the Pyrenees, and he's supported by the French spectators.
Well, moments ago, these leaders hit their highest point of ahead of the peloton, and they've just done it again. They've just added a second. 7 minutes and 8 seconds. But they still have a little matter of 125 kilometers to go. So that's about 77 miles still to race. So the boys aren't going to worry too much just yet. But Sprinters have put some men up behind them very closely. Omega Pharma Lotto, they'll be there for Greipel. They're just directly behind our men on the front at the moment. Liquigas are coming up on the left-hand side, the lime green. They're thinking also of sprinters on their squad. BMC had a tremendous ride yesterday. Why not put your nose up front again today?
A lot of people asking me about the elimination times on a lot of these flat stages. Well, in fact, the elimination is based on the winner's time, and then it's a percentage of that. Now, if the riders ride slowly on one of these flat stages, the elimination time can be as low as 3% of the winner's winning time. But if the race speeds up, it increases in increments for every kilometre per hour. And if they race over 50 kilometres an hour, the elimination time will be as high as 11% of the winner's time. But if you get dropped at 40 or 50 kilometres to go, you soon lose an awful chunk of that.
So the peloton continues to go on. It's 111 kilometres to go. We get our first big sprint of the day at 94 kilometres from the go. So well, Big Dave Zabriskie is the man on the front on a beautiful day here. We're going across the département of the Loire-Atlantique before we finish just inside Brittany at Redon today, and the peloton here nursing a new yellow jersey on day 3 of the Tour in the Norwegian Torhushoft. It's the 4th time he's wore yellow in his career, and he's never actually defended it. So let's see how he gets on today.
Well, it's an ideal position for him to defend it today, because it's a flat stage, it's a sprinter stage. He is one of the top sprinters of the era, and of course he has the advantage, Phil, of the fact that this year there are no time bonuses available.
Yes, so he might have a good day today. Just looking down there, the beautiful wetland area. Now, let me explain a little bit more in detail, with the help of some of the team managers, all about this green jersey competition, because it was invented in 1953, introduced then, to give the sprinters a reason for riding around France. The men that can't climb mountains, but they have a target, and it's the green jersey. It's the second most important jersey in the competition. But this year they've changed the rules a little bit, which will again continue to favour the sprinters and take any points away from possible climbers. And so what it means is that at the midway point, and we're approaching it very shortly, there will be a sprint as if it were at the finishing line. Big points, so just have a look at this.
Point system on the Tour de France, so the green jersey competition in 2011, it's going to be very interesting. You have 2 races in one.
I think they want to have more focus on all the intermediate sprints. So before there were 3 guys who get points, so that the sprint teams, they kind of just let a group go, and then we didn't have the sprint behind. But now it's the 15 first guys get points, so you have to sprint during the stage and also in the finish.
Thank you very much, he said. 6 points in the bag, and that will now give him the lead in this classification.
You know, you have to still sprint now in the middle of the stage, but there's only one, so maybe that's okay. It could go either incredibly good in my way or incredibly bad. It won't be a mediocre where I've got to fight for it.
They're going to require a lot of thought when the time comes, and you know, some pretty serious adjustments to the tactics as far as a green jersey bid goes. That's a lot of points up for grabs in the halfway point every day. It's going to really change the dynamic of the race a lot.
Now if they're 4 guys away, there's still 10 points to earn. So that means you let them go, you control it 10 minutes, but you have to be aware for that intermediate sprint. So you do a lead out, you bring him to the line, you sprint, and then you have to get together again. Those poor guys, they already chased for 2 hours. You have to get them together again, go to the front again, find your rhythm. Don't come too close, because then, you know, if you prepare the sprint and they're only on 3 minutes, you might catch it, which you don't want to do at that stage. So it's more complicated, it's definitely going to be more work.
So this is how the points are scored on flat stages like today. It's 45 points awarded to the stage winner. Medium mountain stages get 30, high mountains get 20. Always going down, it doesn't favour the sprinter. And the time trial, they also get 20 points awarded at the intermediate sprint. Now are for the first 15 riders across the line instead of just 3. So, and the winner will get 20 points. Well, we have a breakaway of 5, so there are still points to be picked up by the main field, and you've got to be consistent to win that green jersey. Well,
importantly for these guys, I think they're more concerned with the money rather than the points, because none of these riders are riders who will be talking about for the points classification in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
The way they're riding, they are going to have a go here, because there's a little bit of tactical employment, I think, just at the moment. Not so anxious to share all the pacemaking just now.
Well, sitting in third position, that's an ideal position for Nicky Terpstra, a man who's got a bit of a track background. He should know how to place himself positionally in the wheel. It looks like Gutierrez is trying to lead it out.
Well, watch out, because this is now an attack by Delage, who was on the man on the back, and he's flown away. Terpstra was last year's champion of Holland, and he's in third place, but they're not going to catch him. The Frenchman has pulled a good move here. He better keep going, though. As he gets up to the line, he gets the points for the sprint, to the applause of the crowd. Second will be Gutierrez, third is Terpstra, fourth will be Perez, and that leaves only the fifth place man to finish, Bouet.
Well, talking about track knowledge there, in fact, Michael Delage was also a very good track rider. He was the junior national pursuit champion of France and finished second in the World Championships, and he knew exactly which moment there to make the move.
Yeah, well, 1,500 euros, that's the currency in France, so he can make use of that. It would have been no good going to England, would it?
No, certainly not. They decided to opt out of the Eurozone a long time ago, and it may well appear to be quite possibly the right decision.
Well, 1,500 euros in the bank then for the winner of that sprint, Michael Delage, Française des Jeux. Wildcard team in the Tour. They aren't automatically qualified to ride the Tour de France, but they're French, and the organisers admit they want to encourage more success in French cycling.
Michael Delage.
Note that Quick Step, and that means Tom Boonen is taking an interest here now, but they're launching the sprint, but Quick Step are a bit sharper here. They're trying to bring Tom Boonen, and watch out, because HTC on the right, the team of Mark Cavendish, are beginning to take an interest as Bernie Eisel, the man that fell off yesterday, is pulling them through at the kilometre to go.
Gregor Bole on the front, red, white and blue, leading out Alessandro Patacchi. Patacchi's the rider in the lime green bicycle, but there's a move on the left-hand side now coming from Omega Pharma Lotte. That'll be Philippe Gilbert, but behind Philippe Gilbert, Andre Greipel.
Greipel is also going to help Philippe Gilbert here, because Gilbert is right up there, but the lead out is perfect at the moment as there's a rush down the outside from the helicopter. Patacchi has got the pink jersey on second place here, and the final lead out coming from Sylvain Chabanel for Patacchi. Now, what's Patacchi going to do? They've got this sharp right-hand turn here. Gilbert is in second wheel. Patacchi looks him in the eye. Well, this is a cheeky move, but the yellow jersey of Hushoff here, little bit of a lean on there from the HTC rider. Hushoff looks at him, doesn't move. Hushoff is going to go for this one. He wants to convert yellow to green if he can, but Mark Cavendish is also through the middle, and as they come up to the line, he's got the enthusiasm now. That missile just hit home.
Well, I tell you what, I didn't notice Tyler Farrer in there at all, but certainly a perfect lead out for Mark Cavendish. He gets across the line, he gets himself 10 points there. He, Phil, is looking to get himself back into this game, and he's got the psychological preparation behind him now to sprint well.
Yes, well, today he decided he rather likes sprinting for what is in fact sixth place, because that was a very, very good sprint. There was that little clash of shoulders there, because Hushoff tried to dive onto the back wheel of Gilbert, and Mark didn't move at all, so they just leaned on each other. And now, once they both opened up the sprint, well, Philippe Gilbert is a good sprinter, but hey, nobody's in the clash of Cavendish.
Well, they certainly are. Cavendish just proving a little point early on in the stage here this afternoon, and as you say, Phil, rather strange there to see the yellow jersey mixing it up in these sprints, and of course Philippe Gilbert sprinting as well. I have a feeling a long way down the road, Philippe Gilbert will be looking to try and get himself a good crack at this green jersey, because he's got a very good chance of getting some more points tomorrow on his birthday at the top of the Mur de Bretagne.
He has indeed, and he might even keep that green jersey yet. Tonight we'll have to find out and see where he finishes in the big sprint of the day when we get down to Redon. Look at that. You're not going to push Cavendish out the way, I'll tell you, because he's too much a track cyclist for that. He's been a world champion on the track.
And don't forget, Thor Hushoff gives him about 15 kilos, so he's not scared at all. That's 35 pounds.
Absolutely right. So 89 kilometers to go, 50-odd miles left to ride, as the peloton now will settle down a little bit. We're looking at 4 minutes 55 the gap at the sprint, so they're continuing to reduce the lead here quite regularly, as they say. It's indeed, and the next target of the day, there won't be too many spectators. Well, it might be wrong, because we're going on to a bridge, and that's the only climb of the day, the Pont the Saint-Nazaire. It's been given a 4th category ranking, which means under these new rules, Paul has been telling us, it's only 1 point for the first rider and nothing for anybody else. And it's the first time I've ever seen anybody lead this competition as the only man to score, and that is Philippe Gilbert at the moment, who has just 1 point.
Well, just looking at the heart rate of Julien Alfares, the rider from Team Cofidis, over the last 10 minutes, his heart rate has been averaging 131 beats a minute, and he's been putting out 216 watts, which is not a great deal.
And he's riding at 40 kilometers an hour, or about 25 miles. It is Anthony Charteau who got himself ahead of the field. I'm quite sure he's gone in pursuit of a single point out on top of the hill, but his new sponsors, Europcar, they are based in this region, so he's also getting himself some good television time. He had such rotten luck at the start of the season. He was taking part in the new Cell C Tour of South Africa, crashed on the first day and broke his collarbone. He's just coming back now. Well, I'm in a little problem with those pictures. Goodness knows why, because we have blue skies and no obstructions. But anyway, we are, and we apologise for those. All of our pictures, he's courtesy of French television. And our brilliant cameraman out on the course, might I add, because they give us some terrific images of the Tour de France. I've got a feeling he's gone ahead to meet his family there and not attack for any mountain points. We'll find out as we take another break. He suddenly spotted where they were positioned. There's his children rushing to say, "Hi, Dad." And he's about to say, "Well, this is our last greeting, and I'll see you all in 3 weeks once I finish the Tour de France in Paris." And you see, the peloton does have a heart, because they've allowed him to ride away. And I'm sorry our pictures aren't all behaving themselves just at the moment. There's the pack coming around the corner. Time to go. And Anthony Charteau back on his bike, the king of the mountains last year, and now getting back into the field. The peloton just easing off for him to join them. In fact, they lost about 5 seconds of their advantage on that leading group of 5 during that moment of waiting for Anthony Charteau. Well, that's a great tradition in the Tour de France. They wouldn't do it, of course, if the race was under high pressure, but when there's a moment, they will. The Saint-Nazaire, this bridge at the mouth of the Loire, that is the height of the highest point of the race today. 4th category climb, the lowest you can get. 1 point, first man across. That's all they're offering in the King of the Mountains. Now, as you see, there's no time now on the screen. They started to close in quickly, but I'm not sure they were closing in at all, because the computer's wiped out on time gaps. So we'll have to start doing our own. 73 kilometers still to go. These boys, for the moment, don't know how far ahead they are, but they will be told by the men on the motorbikes.
No, we always go back to the manual and reliability on the manual, with somebody stopping at the side of the road, writing down the time gap on a whiteboard they use nowadays, and scooting between the breakaway and the main field on the back of a motorbike. It still works. It still works. So these guys, the average speed now, they've been racing 3 hours in the lead, and they've been averaging 25 miles an hour, or 40.4 kilometers an hour. So they've been going very, very quickly under their own steam today. That's a very good average, and not far off the overall average for the Tour de France when it was at record average speeds. So it's 73 kilometers left. The same team up until last year of Mark Cavendish, but he wanted to win for himself, and now he's got his chance in his first Tour de France. He would certainly like in his first Tour de France to come up against his former teammate, and I have to say, if you listen to some of the comments by Mark Cavendish, I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between the two of them. No, I don't think there is. They're riding on opposite sides of the peloton here anyway. Constant cheers and applause for the Tour de France here. There's a very brave gendarme waving that yellow flag. Yellow for danger in Europe rather than red. Parting of the ways and the coming togetherness again. Well, Phil, just actually looking at that sprint point that we went through at 104 kilometers, a name to maybe throw up as a mix in the sprint at the end could be Galamazanov, a new rider on the block. Yeah, absolutely right. That is a name that is going to be another difficult pronunciation, because he is a very fast sprinter. He's won a few races this year, but not of this quality, of course. Well, as the peloton stay larger together, the gap is coming down, but the computer's lost it. So let's find out a little bit more about the course. We'll catch up now with Robbie Ventura.
This is the Race Bible. It's a critical piece of information for the staff as well as the riders. It's got the start hotels, logistics, directions to the start, but for the riders, it's got valuable information. every single climb, where it comes, how steep it is. And for the sprinters, it's got the last 5K dialed in, where the turns are, where the roundabouts are, where the 1K banner is. And this little diagram down here is basically a topographical information of the last 5 kilometers. Ralph Aldag says the information in this book is usually pretty good, but once in a while, it's not right. Thank God they reconned the course today, because he says the big climb starts right behind me at about 2.5 kilometers, and it's not described well in this book at all. He said the team understands it, they know where they're going to set up, they're going to start on the inside, they're going to have it lined out, and they're going to make sure they have Cavendish in a great position here. At the end of the race, the final 500 meters, that's all Eric Zabel's job. He's a 5-time green jersey winner, and he knows a lot about sprinting, and he helps his team out. He's going to tell Cav exactly when to start his sprint. So it's no luck that Cavendish brings it home here at the Tour de France year after year.
Thanks, Robbie. And the reference there to Ralph Aldag, he is the director sportif, or sporting director of HTC High Road. And you bet your life they've gone through that book with a fine-tooth comb today, and they will have put the light out after reading it again last night. Well, the car went by opportunity there. It was Garmin Cervelo, wasn't it? But it wasn't the riders in the Tour. It was, in fact, the VIPs doing their daily ride. Well, we'll see when we get there. We'll see if the spectators have been allowed to get up on top of that bridge as well. It's a very wide bridge, so they might well have been allowed up there in their cars. As the field here continues to reposition themselves now to perform a battle for the sprinters. Scudding up on the outside there, he stands out a mile, and that's why he has a yellow jersey on, so he does stand out. The reason they introduced the yellow jersey was so that the public could point out the leader of the Tour de France. It's yellow because that was the colour of the pages on the sponsoring L'Auto newspaper. And so that's why we can always see where he is. Well, that's a bit of a tight one. In fact, there's a few taking the route there across the middle. Thank heavens they've made it safely. A skillful bunch of boys, aren't they? Now they're getting a bit of common sense among them, and they're coming back together. Wow, that was a tight bend. We can't call that one a roundabout, I'm afraid. It wasn't. Meanwhile, the champion of Lithuania continues to drive for Garmin Cervelo. Well, it makes you wonder, Paul, but they all came through safely. That was a square about, I think, but they're all over it safely. Well, that's all that matters. And
another good reason, I'd have to say, Phil, to practice a little bit of cyclocross in the winter months. Now, cyclocross is a sport that a lot of these riders do during the winter months, which involves racing across fields, jumping on your bike, jumping off your bike, carrying the bike, and it does really help your bicycle maneuverability.
Ramūnas Navadauskas on the front, the champion just of last Sunday. Last Sunday now, of Lithuania, and he's making all the pace for Garmin Cervelo today. I saw that they've moved up their push-off, and his team manager, Jonathan Vaughters, has gone on record this morning as saying that he may well sprint, even though he's up against his teammate Tyler Farrar, because he's wearing the yellow jersey, and he wants to finish near the front to make sure he doesn't lose it.
Well, that's the important thing. He's on the same time as David Miller, his own teammate, and only 1 second ahead of Cadel Evans, and only 4 seconds ahead of Geraint Thomas of Great Britain, and a number of other riders. So he's got to be very attentive in the final few kilometres. But he is a sprinter. That's what he's made his reputation of being. So he won't be afraid of riding at the front end of the main field.
Here we go to the foot of the Pont de Saint-Nazaire. You see, it looks quite a hill now, doesn't it, when she gets from this angle at it, and the wind will make it a contributing factor. Note the flags down there. It will be starting, it looks like they're going to start the climb with a tailwind, which means they'll hit it pretty quickly, and then they'll swing into that crosswind as they make the left sweep. Boy, it looks quite a mountain from this angle.
Well, it is pretty
tough. Only one man gets a point. It's not very fair. As we're looking at the crowds and the flags blowing across the course here, this is the start of the Pont de Saint-Nazaire now, and it's only a 4th category climb, which is the lowest nomination for a climb in the Tour de France, and which this year for the first time is giving a single point in the King of the Mountains competition only to the first man over the top. And it should be one of those 5 riders who go onto the bridge with a lead of 2 minutes and 26 seconds.
But you can see the wind is buffeting the riders from the left here, and that's why they're riding in this diagonal line. Gutierrez saying, come on, over to the left just a little bit more. He's the most experienced rider in the breakaway, number 85. He's riding this year his 8th participation in the Tour de France. But what's going to be a lot more difficult is when the main field, the remainder of the 198 riders in the Tour de France hit this bridge, because they will be battered from the left-hand side. And if somebody makes the decision to put the hammer down, we could see the main field here getting split into 2 or 3 different groups.
Well, there's no hills in the roads behind or ahead, so they've had to make this the only climb of the day. But it is a climb, there's no doubt about that. And I have to say, French designers build magnificent bridges. And there's another one not too far away, the Pont de Tonqueville, which we've also raced over in the past.
I think that was a bit steeper than this one, and I'd give that one 2 points.
We'll give 2 points for that, yeah. That'll be a 3rd category climb. There's the big liners there, being repaired and rebuilt.
Those are the big,
very, very big boat area.
Yeah, those are the big, the Chantiers de l'Atlantique, the big Atlantic shipyards, which for years and years have built some of the most majestic ocean-going liners, going back to the Ile-de-France, which was built in 1927.
Right now, it's the Tour de France climbing the Pont de Saint-Nazaire. These 5 riders are holding on just now to their 2 minutes and 26 seconds. As we start to click off the kilometres to the finish, you'd have thought they'd have turned through the inside. Oh, they heard me, they have. As they go through on the left, and the spectators suddenly get the shock as the riders come from behind.
Now you see how everybody here is being very attentive. The orange jerseys moving to the front. That's Rabobank looking after Robert Hessing. You can see Marcus Burkhardt in the yellow glasses there of Team BMC Racing. He's looking after the position of Cadel Evans. And they are hitting this bridge extremely fast.
They just picked up the tailwind there, but it has very quickly become crossed. Now, the race can split on a ride like this. It can rip straight through the peloton. We saw it, remember, the road to La Grande Motte in 2009, when Armstrong and a lot of the leaders, except Alberto Contador, got into the move that decided the day. Alberto lost a few seconds. You've got to pay attention today. Everybody's programmed to think it's for the sprinters. But if the wind is strong up here, it could break the field.
Well, it is rather nice to see we've got the green light for the go-ahead over the top of the riders. So we're on our way through here as Jose Ivan Gutierrez is queuing himself up. They're going to wait. It's a very strange sprint, this as well. It's just over the top there once the riders get in. And I'm sure, Phil, in fact, it looks to me as if they haven't actually managed to get their banners up this afternoon.
Well, because the only man who scored in the King of the Mountains, Paul, is Philippe Gilbert. He's got 1 point. But I think because there's no countback situation, the winner of this is the most recent winner of a King of the Mountains point. I think the guy will have the polka dot jersey to wear tomorrow, and that's a big catch.
It's a big catch, and they will have worked that out, don't you worry. These guys have got brains like computers when it comes out to working out time differences and points differences, and that's what they will know. The first man to get across the line here will have himself the King of the Mountains jersey at the end of the day. Currently, the King of the Mountains jersey is on the shoulders of Cadel Evans.
Well, here we go as they start. Delage is having a little go again on the front left, but is he going to hang on this time? Certainly Gutierrez doesn't like sprinting. He's dropped off the back, being chased by the Euskaltel-Euskadi, but Mikel Delage had a good day out up front, and he could well be on the podium tonight if we've interpreted the rules correctly as the new leader in the King of the Mountains, albeit with 1 point, the same as Philippe Gilbert.
They work, although they're on different teams, they have to work for one main goal, and that's to stay in front of the peloton. And look at that line of riders coming out of the back.
Yes, and look at the riders at the bottom end of our picture there. The door is open, the gap is there. That's the wind going through the corridor. Those boys are in trouble just for the moment. And in fact, the leaders on that climb lost over half a minute of their advantage. It's now down to 1 minute and 44 seconds. And the peloton are riding at the front now. They're trying to break this race up and spoil the day for the sprinters. Europcar are looking a little bit fragile right now. They've lost 3 riders here at the back. Continuing the climb too, and continuing the pressure at the front of the peloton. Now this is when the climbers really get to grips here. The strong men of the race. I noticed Rabobank. This is a perfect Dutch team action here. Good tactics for Robert Hessing.
Well, if you didn't think that was a 4th category climb, have a quick look at the damage that it's done at the back end of the field, and that really was more because of the wind than the incline of the hill.
Well, that is an absolutely amazing picture, in fact, as the riders are just being beaten marginally by that speedboat at the moment, but the riders will catch him on the way down, so you better watch out.
I don't think they will keep the pressure on here. I think they will, once they've gone over the top of this climb, we'll see it returning to normal, and all of those riders who got popped off the back for a short period of time will get themselves back into contact with the peloton.
That is a huge group at the back, Paul. You're right, they will come back, but it's indicating to us there's a lot of riders already struggling in the Tour de France, because when you see a gap like that on the only pressure point of the day, then they weren't sitting happily riding along in that peloton at all. They were in trouble. Europcar coming back with their 3 riders. They're hooking up at the tail of the peloton, and they'll be glad to be back in the comparative comfort of the main field once they can get on. It's the last few meters which is really hard to do, especially when the guy in front has just got dropped by it. Now they've got to do it all again to get round him as well. There's the little bit of chaos at the back as they scrabble to keep the main peloton in sight over the top of the bridge.
This is the moment when you're actually crossing your fingers and saying, I hope these guys in the front sit up this afternoon and they're not going to continue to put the hammer down. You can see the diagonal line across the road. That's an indicator that the wind is coming very ferociously from the left.
Yes, and now they're slightly moving round to the right, so that line will change its pattern again, and the pack at the front has come together like the concertina. There's a lot of riders setting the pace at the front. See who we can catch up. Well, Team Sky have got the men up there, and they are riding very, very quickly indeed. Don't forget they've got Geraint Thomas, the Welshman, in the white jersey as best young rider. He would dearly love to pull on yellow.
Well, a group of riders from Team Liquigas Cannondale going off the back there. Now that's, I wonder if Ivan Basso got caught out by that. There's a big gap to these riders. We're looking at about 25 seconds. The important thing to try and note is if any of the big leaders in the overall standings got caught out in that split, because if they did get caught out, they will put the hammer down in front.
Well, I think Alessandro Petacchi might be caught at the back, the sprinter there. That'll be rid of one. And look at this. This is Sylvain Chavanel here. So what on earth happened in that catch? Now the pressure will stay on. Now the referees will not allow vehicles in between here because they want a fair play situation. Look at the crowd here.
And the sprinter number 116 there, that's Ben Swift from Team Sky. And he's got caught out because of that too. And you can see
they should get back. That little group should get back. I'm not so confident that this big group at the back will get back.
Well, I'm not sure that they will, Bill, because they're actually starting to put the hammer down at the front end. You can see they're getting themselves organised because of the fact that they may well have eliminated 1 or 2 guys like Alessandro Petacchi. They'd be very happy about that.
The cool face here, the maillot jaune, and that is Thor Hushoff, Stuart O'Grady, the Australian in the middle here. Looking at these faces, that hurt. These boys were up for the chase, but there is a serious split at the back. Let's have a look from the helicopter here now. Mark Cavendish safely in that front group. This is the champion of France who has just rejoined Sylvain Chavanel. Very surprised he was caught out, but he was caught out. Ben Swift has got back as well, so he's a very fast sprinter. He's in his first Tour de France, the British rider. Now it looks as though they're easing off the pace. Not too sure. Let's slow it down. I don't know why they want to do that. But they haven't really eliminated any of the likely candidates if they're going to slow it down, that's for sure. Roundabouts as they continue now to snake their way through. That hurt a lot of people today, but you've got to keep alert. There's our shipbuilding yard, and there's a new ship under construction. Well, the chase is just about over for these boys that got split off on the bridge because the leaders slowed down as soon as Chavanel, and with him was Ivan Basso, who should not have been at the back either, got back into the pack. So there's no reason to leave these boys out in the cold because they're not considered leaders and winners of the Tour de France. So as we have wisps of cloud on a beautiful day here as we head towards Brittany now, that's where we'll be tomorrow and racing for all of the day. 47 kilometers to go, a minute 26 the gap. They stretched it just a little bit again because the peloton did slow down, and that's why that big field has regrouped at the back, and they're just going to let those boys fry a little bit longer.
Yeah, they don't want to pull them back right now. They're still going to wait for that about 20 kilometer to go point. Then we'll start to see the trains getting themselves organized in the peloton to lead out the men who are regarded as the fast men of the world of professional cycling. Thor Hushovd, I think, has really enjoyed his day in yellow this afternoon. He's been chatting with all the guys. Funnily enough, over on the right-hand side, Jens Voigt used to be a teammate of Thor Hushovd, and I've noticed him spending a lot of time chatting with Stewie O'Grady, and those riders were all together on Crédit Agricole a number of years ago with Jonathan Vaughters.
Studying effort here. There's the Breton flag, which is flying there and indicating just how strong this wind is just now. And the boys that just came back are picking up that sort of tail to crosswind once again, and they haven't quite finished the job off yet, so it's still hurting them as they close down the gap. It looks to me as though Thor Hushovd has not been under pressure today. We've never seen him showing us the agonized look on that face of his, so he's feeling as though he's still going pretty well at the front end of the peloton. And it is Dave Zabriskie doing a lion's share of the pacemaking as well for the Garmin-Cervelo team. He's the teammate of Thor Hushovd. Vladimir Karpitz here, former winner of the Tour of Switzerland. It looks as though he's really been hit hard. Now, he's not going back to the team car. He's going back because his legs just said, hey, we've had enough here. The wind did continue to rip in from the left. And, oh, I'm hearing, in fact, from the race that Karpitz did, in fact, crash. And he's, well, he's crashed at the most unfortunate time. Whether he came down on that roundabout, which wasn't round at all, I'm not too sure. But these boys got back to the pack, and now they've been blown off the back again.
And this is going to be the scenario for the next few kilometers. They're on a fairly small road, the D773, which takes them right into the outskirts of Redon, and they will have this wind battering on their left-hand shoulders. Occasionally a little bit of respite when they go through some area where there's some vegetation, but when they go out into the open fields, they will be buffeted.
Well, a number of riders, in fact, out on the course have been in trouble now. Sandy Cassar has also been dropped in this group. The Française de Jeux team leader, they're getting it back together again. But the direction of the route now, the wind is going to stay pretty much cross all of the way, so they're not going to get real chance to organise themselves to get back onto the tail of this peloton. The peloton now being driven by the Leopard Trek team at the front of Andy Schleck. Now, this is our final word to you, so make sure you are playing the IZOD race for the podium sweepstakes. Just log on to NBCSports.com/podium and your chance to win a trip for two to next year's Tour de France, or an S5 Cervelo bike, a clean bottle, or a Giro helmet. And today's code word is sprint. Thank you very much, Liam. In fact, I want you all to really make Bob struggle, so make sure you ask him very difficult questions. And so we're now looking here at the return of Vladimir Karpitz, not the return to the peloton. The poor man crashed, got back, got dropped, changed his bike. He's now trying to just catch anybody he can share the pace with to see if he can get back up to the leaders. And so he's got a tough chase now. This is a tough way to ride the Tour de France now. He doesn't know which car to follow, Vladimir Karpitz. If the car can't get out the way, you can't accuse him of pacing, really. He's just got those few riders off the back, but he's losing ground on the peloton.
Yeah, for a moment when I saw him get back into the convoy, I thought he had a pretty good chance of getting himself back into this race. But as you can see, there's a group of riders have been dropped off the back. He'll catch them, and now he's got another hard job to try and leapfrog onto the back end of the tail of cars just in front. And there is a referee there keeping an eye on the fact that they don't want him motor pacing.
Well, he's a marked man. He's a rider who, as Paul has said, has won the best rookie, the white jersey, in the Tour de France in the past. He is a man who could feature and could finish easily in the top 10 in Paris. So he has been caught out to no fault of his own. You see the way the motorcycles are carrying press photographers, television cameras, all been told by the race referee to ride to the left, not to impede or indeed hinder or even help the chase. He's being made now to do all of it by himself. But they are slowly but surely getting back to the tail of the Tour de France. This is Sandy Cassar, the double-stage winner in the past. He was caught off on the bridge as well.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise. And again, it's just a question of being in the right place at the right time, which is why you have to make sure when you come to a critical point, like the Pont de Saint-Nazaire, and you could see all the big leaders were riding at the front end of the pack, you've got to make sure you're in the first 15 to 20 places. And Sandy Cassar obviously was pretty much caught out.
He was, and I'm a bit surprised considering his experience, but the front end of the race really hit that climb hard. They really went for it. They clearly had a plan to test people and see how well they're coming through on this third day of the Tour de France. Team Astana has moved to the front, perhaps for Alexander Vinokourov, although he's not a very good sprinter. There he is, his third third face to the left of the boys in the turquoise colour. It's been obscured now. The hotbed of all sport, but cycling particularly in this region. Jens Voigt, dead centre, waving at the camera. Thank you, Jens.
Followed by Stewie O'Grady, and
Yep.
followed by Andy Schleck and Linus Gerdam in the reflective glasses. This moment now, Phil, is a little bit the waiting game, waiting to take over responsibility of setting the pace, setting the pace and to bring the riders down into the outskirts of the finishing town of Redon.
I was laughing there, Paul, because they were actually pointing out the breakaway, saying, well, there they are, why don't we catch them? That's what they're saying. And there's that smiling and not making the final kill. That field has got everything under control for sure. There's the peloton approaching another roundabout. It was a roundabout that claimed of Vladimir Karpich, but he's now back in the field. I'm taking a few deep breaths, I'm sure. It looked unlikely he was going to rejoin at one stage. The left-hand side wins by half a peloton, and the boys on the other side have lost a few places.
Well, just to take you through the final kilometres to get into your mind what it's going to be like for the sprinters. From around about 5 kilometres to go, in fact, inside of the last 5 kilometres, there are only really 2 savage corners. One at 4 kilometres to go, which is a slight sweeper to the right-hand side, then a 90-degree bend at 3 kilometres to go. Then after that, the riders are into the Rue de Rennes with one final bend at around about 750 metres to go, which I would put down as a bit of a sweeper. And that's the moment when we'd have to see who is going to be in control of the big lead-out.
We're into Pont-Château, and this is the church of Saint-Martin, as we continue now to make our way towards the finish today.
Pont-Château, quite interesting, was the home to a very big filmmaker and director known as Jacques Demy. And he wrote a lot of famous works, French movies like Lola, Peau d'Âne, which means the skin of a donkey. And he also wrote a very interesting musical called Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, or The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which actually won a Palme d'Or in the Cannes Film Festival in 1964.
Well, no umbrellas required today except to keep the sun off, so parasols maybe. As we are watching the peloton go by now, 29 seconds, 32 kilometres to go. And Jens Voigt has taken control at the front for Leopard Trek. And so maybe they're going to try and take the stage as well today. 19 miles from the finish now in the Tour de France today. The peloton have backed off. They can see the 5 leaders, but they don't want to catch them. We're seeing some of the big teams of this year's race control ahead of the peloton, while the farmers are getting on with riding their own bike. On the left of our picture, the peloton is speeding by. Well, once again, the artistes, the farmers here in the department 44, the Loire Atlantique, have been absolutely magnificent.
Fier de vous nourrir.
The round wheel isn't easy.
They're definitely doing a great job. Just to translate, fier de vous nourrir. They are proud to be feeding us. And they do a good job there. I tell you what, the wares that we get a chance to eat and taste around the whole of the hexagon of France are really quite remarkable.
Yep, absolutely terrific. Even the chain wheel there, looks as though it's about a 52-2 chain wheel. That should give them a high gear for the sprint today.
I do say, though, Phil, I do like that bottle on there.
It's extremely good. They won't be using those today in the peloton of the Tour de France. We've got Jens Voigt and everybody pacing on the right. The centre here is Team Astana. Lotto are on the left of our picture. They're looking after Andre Greipel. Some of these big teams up front right now, like the orange of Rabobank, the black of Leopard Trek, as we're doing 70 kilometres an hour there. That's about 42 miles an hour. They are keeping their team leaders out of trouble, basically, because some of those teams have no interest in the sprint finish at all. But the safest place in the peloton is at the front, as witnessed on day 1 when Contador was caught out some 10 kilometres from the finish.
This 5-man group, Phil, have suddenly picked up the pace. They've said they're going to throw caution to the wind and see whether or not they can create a bit of a surprise here. They know that the wind is starting to become that bit more blustery, but they've picked up the pace field to come and catch them.
Well, and they're just dangling, but you could hear the tyres of the bikes on the road just there as we got right in amongst it. And those tyres, you know, are inflated to such a high degree. They're bullet hard, and 4 times the pressure goes in those tyres that would go into a motor car tyre. They are really rock hard, and they do bang when they go off, believe me. And so too here is Christophe Cairn. The time trial champion of France was caught out but he's now getting himself back.
Well, looks like two riders have got off the front of this five-man group. One of them is Jose Ivan Gutierrez, and the other one is the Française de Jure rider, Mikel Delage.
Yes, and they go clear. The other three look as though they're surrendering. Maybe they're acting as decoy to ease these two into the lead. The white colours there, this is how the move has come. The attack has come from Delage, chased by Gutierrez. Rather feeble attempt by Bouet, shook his head, I can't go.
He got caught out because he was actually having a drink at the time, so couldn't get his hands onto the handlebars to accelerate and kick onto the slipstream with these two others.
Come on, flick of the elbow, that means come on through, come on, let's go. As the flag showing you the strong wind which are now blowing here, they're blowing across the riders as we race towards Brittany. The maillot jaune of Hushoff, you could see it, front left as he rides now. He's keeping himself out of trouble here. All that Thor Hushoff has to do is finish in this field alongside the winner. Anywhere will do. Get the same time, he will keep the lead.
Just look at that. Well, briefly, on the right-hand side of the road, every member of HTC High Road were lined up on the left, on the right of the road, getting ready, I think, Phil, to decide when they want to take responsibility of pulling this race back together and trying to set up Cavendish for the win.
Well, in previous years, they've taken responsibility by now, so maybe there are a number of teams here that might want to interfere with what we see as a formality for Mark Cavendish. 18 kilometres are still to ride to the finish. They're doing well, these boys. It's still 33 seconds. Makes you want to cheer them on and hope they can succeed. And Christoph Kern is getting himself back as well, and with him there is Kay Manure, who wears the red jersey, the most aggressive rider on day one. He was in the breakaway on the first day. We didn't have a road race, of course, yesterday, and so he wears that number.
Yeah, just in front as well, Anthony Charteau having a very difficult first couple of days here at the Tour de France. At the front, it's still the two riders chased by Perez, Bouet and Terpstra.
Of the race here, this is Jerome Pinot, who has come back. I'm not sure where he's been. I think he was dropped, but he's got himself back onto the tail of the bunch.
Well, I tell you what, we are looking here at probably 40 miles an hour, and we're going uphill. I tell you what, it's going to be a real mad dash to the line. In the sprint, by the way, these riders can push speeds approaching 50 miles an hour.
Now, Contador has learned a lesson on day one when he crashed 10 kilometres out, because he's now moved to the front of the race here. So any silly falls, he's not going to get involved with them today, he hopes. He's gone into the safety department at the head of the race.
Well, as they say, once bitten, twice shy, and he was very much smarting when he came to the finishing line. Oh, there's a problem at the back here. And this looks like Raim Taramay, who's had a problem. Now, he's the leader of Team Cofidis. This is Leonardo Duque passing on the wheel to him. Duque, very much the sprinter. Taramay, the man who regarded as a possible top 10 finisher for Cofidis. And this is a very slow change, Phil, at 11.5 kilometres to go.
Well, professional bike riders, not wheel changers. That's the problem, isn't it? But anyway, Raim Taramay is going to have to get back at the most crucial stage of the race. And that really is bad luck, because he would be losing quite a lot of time there. Just now, these two riders, they're now 24 seconds. Little flick of the right elbow this time to say, come on, Michael, let's keep it going. The peloton haven't got them yet. It could be around the 10 kilometres to go, Banner, where they will catch them.
Well, Taramay, who had that very quick wheel change with his teammate, is now trying to get himself back into the peloton. It's always a moment of panic if you have a mechanical incident inside of the last 15 to 20 kilometres to go, or about 12 miles or so. You can see he hasn't panicked himself, but he will be inside. He'll be wondering whether or not he's going to make the junction. He doesn't want to lose a couple of seconds like this. He's being helped by the Belgian rider Romain Zingel.
It's the second Tour de France for Taramay, but he didn't finish last year, to abandon on the 13th stage. There's a lot of action now as the peloton is splitting up under pressure. They're bringing Taramay back. These are the two leaders as well. They're also riding very well. Three riders at the back, still looking for Taramay to get back as the two leaders. Just look at this. He will not give up, this man. He is driving with everything that's left in his body. He broke away with the others at 2 kilometres in. He's now running into the last 10 kilometres to go. As we look now, there it is, 10 kilometres to go. You've got to take your hat off to Jose Ivan Gutierrez, who's the strong man here of the tandem, but Mikel Delage helps him whenever he can. And they're going into the last 10K, 12 seconds to the good.
That's 6 miles of racing remaining, a quarter of a minute, and that corresponds to 250 meters. The guys in the peloton, they can see they can almost reach out and touch them, and still they're allowing them there to stew. The American rider, Tyler Farrar, is somewhere locked in the main field, while there's action at the front end of the peloton and the back.
Yes, really made the peloton sort itself out. And now we are all together, apart from one or two off the back today, so the sprinters now know that they are about to have their day. It is not an ugly finish, but it is not an entirely safe one either, because from what we've heard from Jonathan Waters today, the buck is slightly wrong and the finishing bends are a little bit sharper than it seems to indicate.
We've seen him sprint magnificently so far this season, and he's not scared of reputations like Cavendish, Hushovd or Farrar.
No, he isn't. I just wish he had an easier name to pronounce when we start talking at 100 words per second. But Pavel Brut is the champion of Russia, who is setting the pace there for his new young teammate. As we're now hitting just on 70 kilometers an hour, about 42 miles an hour. That'll do right now. They'll go faster than that as they approach the finish. A lot of movement in the centre of the peloton. This is when it gets a little bit dangerous. They've got to go to the right of the road. The gendarme there marking this problem in the centre. One or two couldn't fit in. Now it's the long journey as they go the other way, because you see it was a right turn. The wrong way round is the long way round. They're getting back.
Sad for them, but they've slipped from first place in the main field down to about 55th. It's going to take a lot of energy to scramble back up to the front end of the pointed peloton this afternoon, but you've not caught out Team HTC High Road. They're still waiting for the moment when they've really got to go full gas and stretch this peloton out into a very long line. They're still on the inside. Look at Cadel Evans. He is riding right at the front end of this pack. He doesn't want to get involved in any accidents this afternoon, and he knows that if there's a gap between David Miller and Thor Hushovd and himself in the main field today, he could be in the yellow jersey.
Well, he won't want to lose time, that's for sure. I'm not sure he wants yellow, but we'll see. Look at the length of the line as the Cofidis boys have hooked up at the back. Well, they still won't see the front, and I doubt they'll see the front until we finish in about 6.5 kilometers from now. That's an awful long way to the ticket collectors department today. As the peloton here now are all looking at what HTC High Road are doing. They are riding like champions. They're only thinking of a win for Mark Cavendish. Others are trying to break in and break up the train, but at the moment that's going to prove impossible.
That, of course, will be Alessandro Petacchi.
Yes, so although he was in trouble on the Pont de Saint-Nazaire, it looks as though he's recovered from that. We're going to do a reverse loop now as we'll go over the tail. Chance for the leaders to look who's struggling at the back. But this is now showing us the pressure is on. And just look at the length of the line here. There are going to be riders left behind in this run into the finish today, and they will get a different time.
They will, and they will get tailed off. We're now coming up to the 5 kilometre to go banner very shortly, and then we'll take a bit of a sweep around to the right-hand side, and then a very nasty 90-degree right-hand turn at 3 kilometres to go. And that's where you have to be attentive. That's where you have to make sure you keep yourself upright.
Just look on the far side, the gaps there as riders are now scrabbling for wheels. And this is Peter Velits here. He's gone so fast he's left his team behind. Now he's got to get them reorganized as they come back up towards him here. Just trying to see if I can see the face there, the Petacchi behind the boys in mauve. I can't quite see him there at the moment, but certainly he's in there too. Tyler Farrar is on Hushovd's wheel and would be a great lead out if Hushovd could give it to him. Also in there, I've noticed now coming up too, are the riders of Alessandro Petacchi and also, of course, Andrei Greipel, all trying to get a little bit of space.
But to be a sprinter, to win a sprint, you've got to play a waiting game. Looks as if Tony Martin now has disappeared from the front. He's lost that little bit of energy. It's up now to Matty Goss. Big acceleration coming across. It looks like it's a rider from Vacances Soleil has seen the move coming from Lampre.
Yes, well, this is as they've gone, I think he's tried to launch an attack at the moment. This is a typical move as if Pavel Brut has made the move here. I think, in fact, it could well be a very, very shrewd move. This, I would think, is Boris Bosic who we've seen win already this year. This is an absolute typical move by this man if he can do it. There aren't many strong men can ride away from a peloton so close to the finish.
When you're in a great team of sprinters, you've got to stay calm. When you see the moves going like this, you've got to just make sure you slowly continue with the plan that you've got in mind, and that's exactly what Matthew Goss is doing. Matty Goss is just sitting there. He's judging his effort on the rider from Vacansoleil, waiting to keep himself at the front end of the pack. Cavendish has let the gap go. There's a problem there, I think.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because there were so many riders and they were running out of firepower there on the run into the finish. We're only just over a mile out now as they try to reorganize themselves as they race towards the finish now. I think this is Boric who's tried to go Bosic, but in any case he's going to be back in the pack, and they're getting themselves organised. Renshaw, solid as a rock, is still locked there in front of Mark Cavendish.
Well, the blue helmets on the shoulders, on the heads of the riders from Garmin Cervelo, and they're looking over the It's a bit of panic on board Team HTC High Road now. Inside of 1 kilometre to go, Cavendish has slipped down to about 7th or 8th position. His team is a little bit in pieces as we start to try to get the organisation going again.
If Cavendish has slipped and lost the wheel, he's going to have to reposition himself in the next 900 metres, because Garmin Cervelo, who won the team time trial yesterday, are all of a sudden on the front. That looks to me as though it's Geraint Thomas who has gone round the race there for Sky in the white jersey. And is this going to be a runaway for the Welshman? Because now is the launch, and the maillot jaune is the Thor Hushovd. He's got tucked in the slipstream there, Tyler Farrar, and Mark Cavendish has disappeared from our screen as Thor Hushovd now launches for the finish.
Well, Hushovd is going around the corner. Tyler Farrar is in 3rd position, right onto his wheel. It's Romain Feluba. Jose Rojas is coming up too.
Rojas is going, but this is going to be Tyler Farrar big moment. First Tour de France, he's going to have to hold off Rojas as they race for the line. It is desperately close, but Tyler Farrar gets it on the line. Garmin Cervelo cannot do a thing wrong, but the question happened to Mark Cavendish. It seemed to be going so well, but the American gets his first ever stage win in a Tour de France.
And of course, Phil, let's not forget, as we look at the replay here, and the face of Tyler Farrar in the middle with the blue helmet on, it's back-to-back wins for Garmin Cervelo after yesterday's team time trial.
You may have seen Paul, he made the W with his fingers here. Look at there it is, and that is for the man, his teammate and friend. Well, not his teammate, his great friend Walter Vaillant, who died this year in that crash in the Tour of Italy, which really hurt Tyler Farrar very, very much indeed, because he was saying he hadn't lost a friend, he'd lost a friend.
Well, Julian Dean just coming across the line. Little bit of panic on board here. That was a great lead up. The team worked perfectly in the last 1 kilometre or so. They got themselves together, and of course you had to notice that Thor Hushovd was all part of that. I'm not really quite sure. There was a little bit of a crash there. There you can see, and I think that was in fact Mark Cavendish was just at the back end of that. It opens up the gap. Somebody from Cofidis goes down on the right-hand side of the road. That created a little bit of confusion.
Yeah, it was either BMC or Cofidis. It might have been Duque who went down there, but I don't think so. He was off the back of the race. I was Samuel Dumoulin who went off the back on that left-hand bend there and crashed for the Cofidis team. He's just coming in now. He gets the same time as everybody else, not that he's interested in that. He wanted to try and win the stage. So that might be the reason then for Mark Cavendish losing out in the killing sprint today. No doubt of the perfect lead out by Thor Hushovd, who keeps his yellow jersey tonight. This has been an incredible 3 days for the American Garmin Cervelo team, hasn't it? They've got the leader still. They've got the winner today. They've got the winner yesterday. There'll be no controlling Jonathan Vaughters now. It just is going so well for him. Geraint Thomas did try to win the stage, but he was outrun at the end, and the final dash for the line came brilliantly from Tyler Farrar here. And that's his first ever stage win in the Tour de France, and it'll be a very memorable one here in Redon. And the rider just getting up on the side of him there was Romain Felu, the Frenchman on the left as we look at the picture, and Rojas there as well, I think it is. But he got the win, that's all that matters. No time bonuses. Otherwise, he might have got himself a yellow jersey, so his teammate will keep it. I think we can show you the stage results too. That's confirmation. Tyler Farrar ahead of Romain Felu it was. Rojas third. Sebastian Hinault, no relation to Bernard Hinault, by the way, in fourth. Mark Cavendish has still managed to cross the line in fifth. I couldn't see him, I must say, but he's officially in fifth. Hushok is in 6th, and that 0-0 means in the same time means he keeps his yellow jersey. And it was Bosic who tried to win. He, in the end, got swept away and finished in 8th place. So, 4th of July, Independence Day, and the Americans have won today's stage.